Hello and welcome to week 4 of the Eternal Super League. This is our second take at it, I'll be honest. We thought we were live for the last 10 minutes, and we got pretty far through the intro, so we're going to be very well rehearsed at this. My name is Andre from the Metropol Grid. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're in the chat, let us know we're live. We definitely appreciate that sort of support, for sure. Week 4 of the Eternal Super League. This is going to be quite exciting. For those who don't know, this is the Eternal Super League. We have 9 players showing up for 9 weeks of asynchronous play, playing in the Eternal format, the wildest format in Netrunner, with almost the entire card pool spanning over 12 to 13 years. These players are working through a round robin. We have a lot to talk about today because specifically week 4 begins phase 2, where we can change our decks, we can change our identities. Oh, we made it. We made it live. I'm not alone. I'm joined by the Eternal format lead, Warlock. How's it going?
Hello. Happy to be here again, I suppose. I can't wait to see more Eternal gameplay tonight. Week 4, so new decks. I can't wait to see what the players brewed up to face the meta. We'll talk about it later, but I can't wait.
Also joined by Cobra Bubbles. Cobra, how's it going?
Hello, yes, I'm fine and definitely here for the first time.
Here for the first time. I'm worried that you can rewind the YouTube VOD after and you can hear our first intro, The Lost Media. It'll be just as good as this one, don't worry. Just to recap, so we can dive into this. So sorry that we're starting a bit late. If you're not familiar with Eternal, it is a format that's been supported for a long time now. It allows you to play almost all the cards in the Netrunner, the history of Netrunner, whether it's FFG cards or NSG cards. While there's only a couple cards that are banned, there's also a point system that dictates what cards you can put into your deck. Every deck has a budget of 7 points, and play sets of cards will cost somewhere between 3, 2, 1, and of course 0 points. Now, we're dropping in nearly the halfway point in this league of 9 players. And just to look at the current standings going in, these are our current standings across the 9 players. In the top 3 slots, we have Ysengrin off 15-15 and Augustus Caesar all on a very, very good 12 points. Now, notably, every round, because there are 9 weeks and there's going to be an even amount of games going on, one player will have the bye week, which means some of these players have played fewer games than others and some players have played more than others. Now, with still 5 weeks left, including this week, these are definitely going to be changing up, but currently the narrative right here is what we're looking at. Now, notably this week, Haver of Fun will be having the bye week, so we won't get to see Haver of Fun's play, but currently I believe this week we get to see some of the top ranking players playing against each other in this week of round robin. Now, Phase 2 is also really exciting. For the first 3 weeks, these players had showed up with the decks that they've been brewing and crafting, and after 3 weeks of feedback and understanding what's going on, this is the beginning of Phase 2. So for weeks 4, 5, and 6, players can now change their decks that they brought in for the first 3 weeks. Now that means you can change a couple tech cards, you can see what works, what doesn't work, but also you can just change everything. You can show up with an entirely different list, you can bring new identities, and we're going to see some very exciting shifts in the meta, whether they're responses to what players have seen and what they want to try out or what they've learned. We'll look at the identities that we went into Phase 2 with. So for the last couple of weeks, this is what we saw: Andromeda being the most popular runner there, 4 Andromeda players, followed by a bit of Anarch Shaper. Mind you, that one Cabinessa Wu deck was Toron's 125 card World Tree Wu deck, which has been quite a splash in the Eternal format. I think it's the first time we've seen a deck like that, and it's been really fun to watch. And on the corp side, it's not too unexpected. Cerebral Imaging, Industrial Genomics, Matimo Kundo are pretty expected for that Eternal format. Of course, we have Op, and we have some of the spicy, interesting stuff like Spark and Skorpios and Cybernetics Division. Now, this is Phase 2, and players, they didn't change a couple cards in their decks. Sometimes they've changed even hundreds of them. And going into week 2, this is the identity split. We're now at 4 Cabinessa Woos. Just very cleanly, all the Andromeda players, it looks like, have moved over to that Shaper camp with the World Tree. What do y'all think about that change? Whether we need to all play World Tree to get that toolbox of 100 plus cards? Is this something that the meta, like, what do y'all expect after you saw week 1? Did you expect changes like this?
Well, Cabinessa Wu and World 3 made definitely a splash, if not in the results, where I think Toron is only 1 and 2 currently piloting the deck. Definitely in the potential and like the novelty of the deck, definitely. So I was expecting not as many people picking up, because the deck looks very complicated from outside.
Yeah.
But the power is definitely there, so maybe we'll see even more players pick it up for Phase 3 if the deck brings out great results.
It's a creative deck. It's flexible. As someone watching who doesn't play a lot of Eternal myself, it does look a lot of fun. Like, you do have a lot of agency. So I'm excited to see how week 2 starts, whether we're just in that World Tree dominance meta. Again, the numbers don't exactly support it yet, but it does look like one of the most fun decks you can play. Now on the corp side too, whether players responded to what they expected the response on the runner side, the changes are a bit more subtle here. We're still seeing cerebral imaging and another op player, but Mentima Kundo was only a one of in the first phase where we had Augustus Caesar playing that sort of very exciting Jinteki mid glacier with a bit of, you know, those Mentima Kundo tricks. And I think out of all the identities we saw, that's probably the one ID that is the hardest for the runner to make successful runs for World Tree, specifically in the early game if you don't produce breakers. Do you think that was a response maybe to stop the World Tree successful runs when Mentima Kundo can just dunk a scary Cortex lock or a Chiashi or some of the meanest ice in front of you? What do you think about that, Cobra?
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, we did see that exactly that last week, right?
Yeah.
A Chiashi fatality for a World Tree runner. So yeah, it could be trying to use some of that same powerful do net damage tech, or just, yeah, as you say, trying to disrupt those successful runs to keep the World Tree engine down. But yeah, I'm not sure on paper whether MT can actually set up quick enough to keep the World Tree down, because yeah, that World Tree is going to be running from turn 1.
We also saw some interesting industrial genomics games over the last 3 weeks, and some of those games, the corporation actually got into a lock where an Andromeda with crowdfunding and Heartbeat could actually lock out and take infinite damage. And while IG is less popular this week, so is Andromeda. So seeing whether that Cabanessa Wu deck, whether it has tech to deal with damage or deal with some trashing assets, I think Copulation was the big power card we saw in that matchup. Again, I think IG has actually been pretty okay from what we've seen so far into World Tree Wu. So we'll definitely see less of that matchup on one side with only one IG, but we're going to see some interesting games, that is for sure. Really quickly, again, if you want to see them side by side, this is my quick MS Paint change up, but it's subtle on the corp side, but on the runner side, buckle up. We also do have a Hayley Kaplan, and to see whether that's World Tree Hayley or something else, Heartbeat Hayley, mind you, has been a favorite deck for a long time. I'm not sure exactly in Eternal. We have some interesting brews to see. Do y'all want to jump into some games? We have, again, 8 games this week. So the players have played these games. It's very notable that these are not live games. These are recordings of the games that the players have played throughout the week. And this is, again, week 4. So we're going to be looking at 8 exciting games in Netrunner. To start here on the playlist, we have, this is Silent Arbiter versus Wren on our Cabanessa Wu versus Industrial Genomics. I think I'm going to throw myself on mute. If the two of you want to take it away for the first couple rounds, if we want to talk about what the matchup looks like, just let me know when you want to hit play. Good luck, have fun, y'all.
Absolutely, thank you. So first thing to watch is Cabanessa Wu deck size. Silent Arbiter is piloting a 50-card Cabanessa Wu, which doesn't scream World Tree to me right away. So maybe we're going to see some more regular Shaper bullshit gameplay without all the tutoring that World Tree does. What do you think, Cobra?
Yeah, I'm always excited to see a small Wu. Obviously, you and I once famously piloted a 45-card Wu to some success. Yeah, other things to do in Wu other than World Tree, I think, are really interesting. For my money, it's the most powerful Shaper ID in the format, and certainly the most versatile. And in Rebellion Without Rehearsal, Wu got maybe the best card that Wu has ever got outside the World Tree, which is Coalescence. So you just can click for 3 credits 3 times with your ID, and also produce a program, so you can do things like, as we see here, feed it to spec work. From this opening hand, or various other things that Shaper likes to do with programs. So that's a really nice, versatile card that can really propel you forward. And potentially this is going to be a kind of Shaper control deck of the kinds we've seen in the format before World Tree was printed. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yep. On the other side, we have Industrial Genomics, which usually tries to build a kind of a prisony horizontal board with a lot of net damage coming in every turn. Fueling the archives with a bunch of face-down cards, ideally some archive poison that deals damage, so that Runner is incentivized not to run it often. We'll see if Wren gets to build a big enough board that Silent Arbiter can't deal with, or if Silent Arbiter's tool for Control Shaper can match up with the economical pressure that IG can muster. Let's get into it then. Yeah,
so Wren was playing IG in the first phase, as I recall, and yeah, was playing. Am I right about that?
No, I think Wren was piloting the Drago Op deck. We've seen a switch from both players. Okay. I think Silent was playing Andromeda also in phase 1, so 2 different decks from 2 different players here.
Okay, exciting. So yeah, so this could be any kind of IG. I mean, the other version, right, that's popularly played is the Power Shutdown and a Civic Grid deck, which actually is a very different deck. Does something very different entirely. Attempts to lock the runner out, and the run ice. None of this spiky net damage stuff. So yeah, we'll see how this develops. But one of the priorities of the runner has to be trying to figure out what exactly your opponent is up to here.
Yep, absolutely. Wren taking a first turn, trying to draw up, ideally putting some cards in archive so the trash cost of his assets and any trashable cards actually goes up. We'll see if some of those are archive poison, and we see Silent Tiber click 1, finding the coalescence. I think we'll see a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon do that often in this today.
Yeah, and the eagle-eyed viewer will notice that there is no world tree in that list of programs that pops up when we click Cabernet. So this is a reg woo, as it were.
Good catch. I missed that completely. So yeah, we see a good look into Silent Arbiter's deck as he SMCs and probably uses
SMC
the trick
we're
shot.
going to go for Trick Shot, recently banned in Standard. Not seen a ton of play in Eternal, but we see it here being put to some impressive use with just turning those wooed out SMCs into something, presumably, as we run this remote.
We see a button level clearance, pointed card in Eternal, so that kind of tells us that the IG that Wren is playing is probably geared towards building a big number of remotes rather than going for the Prison United Civic approach. And we see Silent Arbiter putting down 2 Rezekis, trying to bolster his economic power later on in the game.
Yeah, that's a really interesting choice there to go for the Rezeki over the Parisia or the Copulation cards that can provide a lot of economy against this matchup specifically. We're just going for the generic economy, maybe choosing not to commit too hard to trying to contest the assets, but just have more money to do other things with. And there's the third Coalescence for even more cash, which is going to get spec worked away. Nice value there.
Ooh, when we see a spicy include here.
Oh,
with an account siphon.
We've seen account siphon Arisana in Eternal, and similarly to Doof Arisana in Standard. But I've never seen an account siphon woo before. This is an interesting choice. And between that and the Film Critic in hand, that accounts for, I think, 4 points that we've seen so far.
That sounds correct, yes. So that's most of Silent Arbiter's points are already in his hand. We'll see what the rest of the strategy looks like. Right now, it looks like he's getting in third Rezek and getting all his drip money going on right away. The account siphon is particularly interesting because I don't think Wren is expecting to having the Ice HQ to protect from that. So I wonder if they'll get caught by the account siphon. As I say it, Knights comes down on their HQ, protecting the server from nasty run events.
There we go, which is an interesting one. I mean, assuming that Wren is not playing around account siphon here, because it's not the kind of thing you'd usually expect to see in WoW, that might be a read that there are agendas in HQ instead, because obviously a lot of cards drawn already, drawing to overdraw for IG, you can end up with agendas in HQ quite easily.
Absolutely. Some of them might actually hit the archives quickly also. That's another one of those IG classics, hiding agendas where the damage lays. Right now, Wren not building that big of a board, and as I say it, once again, they put down two more servers and res a Genetics Pavilion.
Yeah, this is a very nice card to stop the runner from drawing, to potentially set up kill locks. It can happen surprisingly quickly. That you let a Genetics Pavilion go, and you're not able to draw up, and then suddenly you're just dying to multiple bioethics or various other things. But we do respect it by fetching the copulation. Oh no, we're gonna see silver 6 here. Guess decide what we want. Oh,
that's not something you want to see when you're in Siphon.
No, maybe this isn't a Siphon game. Maybe we keep this Siphon in hand to have it be secret tech or hit points.
And he is checking the all the servers bioethics, something that Wren is looking for to kill. Silent Arbiter, definitely a powerful card.
Yeah, nice one to nab there.
Yeah.
Notably, this compilation is going to go away, although I think we're just going to over-install it potentially anyway, because of Woo, just to make sure it's available to chip back later.
Is there not a coalescence? Did I miss something?
I think we
just miscounted the first two, I guess.
Yeah, that must have been just two used at the.
Oh yeah, there was an undo
just one on
click
the
at
first
one
time.
point.
Ah, that's right. Yeah, that is right.
Ren putting 8 credits on the sealed vault to get the 1 damage coming in from the Bloodward. A nice combo that between 2 cards that never saw each other. Something that you would do in standard with Nazex back in the days when that was legal in standard, but sealed vault works much better and keeps your money much safer.
Yeah, and it just happens to be the best tech card for Account Siphon that basically has ever been printed at just 1 influence as well. And now we see these damage assets start to stack up here. We're going to be taking 2 damage here unless we want to prevent with the filter, which it looks like we do.
I love that Ren spent exactly 1 credit to put 0 credits on sealed vault, just to get the damage from Bloodward.
Wow, that's cheeky.
That's commitment.
That's really reading your cards and using all the text on them. You love to see it.
Feedback filter. Yep.
I was going to say other interesting cards we have installed: the All-Star Akamatsu Mem chip, an OG from the original core set in play here. Apparently, Silent deciding that just the most efficient way to get memory in this program-heavy deck was the original 1 cost 1 MU chip.
This makes me wonder what kind of console Silent is running, because you would usually play Astrolabe before you play the Akamatsu Mem chip, right? It's an Akamatsu Mem chip that does something. So I'm interested in seeing whether we have a different console or we just want more of the same effect.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with playing multiple Astrolabe, right, is that they are unique. So if you want multiple MU, then maybe having this other as worse Astrolabe, and you're like, oh, never mind, we found the console.
Here we have our answer, I guess. We have more servers than we can fit in the screen, apparently. So we'll see Silent scrolling through, which is different from what most people do on JNet, which is just zoom out.
It's a controversial method, the scroll method. I can respect it, but it's not the life I live.
Yeah, I agree. Meanwhile,
but we're seeing Ren really establish this asset lock here now. Multiple net damage assets ticking. We've got a day business show to filter those draws. The pavilion's still up, so now that we're down on 2 cards, it's going to be tougher to keep refilling that hand over and over. So we're getting into a bit of a chokehold here.
Runner gets to prevent some of the damage every turn. When we found 2 more points worth of Netrunner cards in Employee Strike, definitely something that will help here deal with this lock. Reducing the trash cost of every card by 7.
Yeah, that's very nice. That potentially gives us avenues to actually start turning this Rozeki money into really contesting the board. So it comes down immediately and we're going for the bioethics.
Instantly taking down the damage, making sure the lock stays far away, the kill stays behind for a while, and rezzing the Rashida. Maybe not what you want to do when you have a Bloodward dealing damage every turn, getting over 5, a lot over 5, but with all these assets to res, it's a good position, and Ren really needs to find the next current to get Employee Strike out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably recognizing that this Bloodwort is going to be a high priority target to be dealt with next turn if the strike stays in play. So you can start making money now and be a bit less torn about that prospect.
Silent using the Stone Ship off turn to get through the lock that Genetic Pavilion is putting on him is a very nice way of recognizing when you can use your trash effects and get around the strict wording says no more than 2 cards per turn, but we play different turns between the 2 players, so he gets to get around the limit, the strict limit that the card's putting down.
Yeah, Stone Ship, just as versatile a card in Eternal as in Standard, if not more so.
Yeah, run on a server that's not on the screen.
There's a hostile infrastructure somewhere, and it's a bioethics. So if we trash this, we're going to be taking some damage to this hostile infrastructure.
Yep.
Because we want to prevent it with feedback. No, we decided to leave it.
So it's not
Probably going
trash
to
yet.
go after this hostile now.
That makes absolutely sense. It's 5 to trash and more to deal with damage. The Parisia coming down also a few turns ago is going to help dealing with all these trashable assets.
Yeah, so we're actually seeing, not to speak too soon, but we seem to be seeing a runner who's found the tools to climb out of the IG lock, which I don't think is something we've really seen in the league to this point. Generally, when IG gets to the point where there are 5+ first downs in archives and 3 or 4 controlling assets on the table, it's able to convert that into a win pretty quickly. But Silent finding the tools to keep in the game here.
Yeah, all these economical programs slowly dripping in more and more value. And we'll see if he ends up controlling the game out to a control win, or if the lock slowly builds up again and he has to change plans and trying to find the agendas in the central servers.
Yeah, the big question is whether there's a countercurrent available. I mean, you have to assume there's one somewhere in the deck, but the IG still got almost half cards left in R&D here as we go into turn 11, so hasn't seen as many as Ren might like to find the current here.
Yeah,
the Daily Business Show is helping with that.
Definitely Ren digging through their deck, looking for the current. Before Silent Type there finds his own second copy of Employee Strike, which you can assume he's playing at least a couple if you spend points on it.
Yeah,
Trashing
the
more hostile infrastructures.
influence starts to get tight with siphons and strikes, but if it's just 3 of each of those cards for 15 influence, you can do worse, to be honest. That's not too bad. Although there is a compilation at least, so can't quite be that.
Yeah, you're right. Most of the rest of the cards look green or neutral at least, so it looks like most of the influence went on some amount of account siphons and some amount of this employee strike.
Yeah,
it looks like
nice
Silent came in prepared for IG in all of his deck, because the Heartbeat crowdfunding deck also looked very prepared to deal with IG. So it's curious to see players having biases over what they'd rather be tacked against, or if this deck maybe stack against more things than this.
Which corpse do you think you can beat just with the sheer power of your deck and your gameplay, and which do you need the help for? It's a really interesting call in the format, and it's been said many times that it's a format that's kind of all about the deck cards you choose to play in some ways. And there's play in every game, whether or not you've got the right deck for the matchup. Most games you can find a way to win, but having a card like Feedback Filter in your deck, a card like Parisia, for example, or Film Critic, can sometimes make things much easier. We see the countercurrent played here. That's a big play from Ren.
Finally getting those IG credits on the crash list of every one of their cards. Unfortunately, maybe a little too late, as most of their assets are now gone, especially at least the ones that deal damage. So Silent Type, they're not pressured into having to trash any of those, at least for now.
But notably, though, we've had 3 genotypes played, genotypings, I should say, to shuffle back a lot of them. The last one shuffled back 4 different net damage dealing assets. So Ren has certainly got the tools to rebuild the board state here, especially if Silent can't find the second employee strike.
Yeah, we can see the targets from the last genotyping. Looks like it's double Bloodwort, a single bioetics, and an hostile infrastructure. So a lot of damage coming in. Ren's R&D is definitely filled with damaging cards. Another thing we've seen in IGs recently is the attempt to fit in some amount of Regenesis, as a way to put some pressure on runners that doesn't want to run, so that they can score out something. It'll be interesting if that piece of Ice on server 16 ends up being something that Ren scores something behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Regenesis fork really added a lot to these decks. Not too dissimilar from the Restoring Humanity decks we've seen in Standard, which really fork the runner between a plan that will kill them and a plan that is going to score to 7 surprisingly quickly with the use of Regenesis. It just really can make life a lot harder, especially as Silent has had to spend so much money preventing net damage, dealing with assets. actually pivoting to this Ngolo in hand, for example, to start breaking ice is going to be a bit tricky.
Or he's selling a copy of Inti, which I would not be able to tell you exactly the numbers on that card off the top of my head, but that's a Fractor.
Ooh. Yeah, I think it's 2 cost for strength, 2 credits for strength, and 1 per subroutine. From memory, this is a card I played a lot of back in the day as a should we say pathological Nazir player, because Nazir really liked cards that costed 0, because Nazir often had 0 credits.
It also keeps strength, right, between ice,
Oh,
so it
that's
makes
right.
sense.
It has the Gordian Blade text, yes.
And we see a longevity serum getting scores. A different scoring plan looks like, but something that will help
Interesting.
Wren put more damaging, more kill cards in their deck.
Yeah, so this could just be we're a 49 card deck, so we need to play, if we're playing 6 3-pointers, we need to play another agenda. There's a nice enough one synergize as well with your ID. But maybe we're pivoting to scoring here. Interesting.
In some capacity, it looks like that, yeah. Silent Arbiter still has 1 MU floating, and we see a Laguna Velasco district, something that a lot of shapers.
Oh, a little late.
Yeah, definitely late, yes. That's something shapers love to play when they need to draw a lot of their cards here.
We are getting the breakers down here, so we're a little low on cash for Silent, but assembling the tools to really try and lock this game and actually find some points, because we still haven't found any. We're starting to run out of cards. On both sides, actually.
On both sides, absolutely, yes. There is some amount of damage coming in slowly on that Bladderword. We'll see how Silence decide to deal with that. It's currently very expensive trash, so definitely not an option. And it looks like maybe Silent will have to switch to a plan of like stealing agendas from centrals with this trick shot.
Oh, Excalibur. Very interesting interaction with Trickshot here. We'll see if we want to paint it with the Angolo. But I'm pretty sure that would prevent the second Trickshot run from taking place.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, strangely good piece of tech. Gosh, shame that wasn't in standard last year.
And those are 2 terrible cards to see with from your accesses, something that you definitely don't want to run into.
Yeah, so now it looks like JNet doesn't know that you can't make this trick shot run. The players are just figuring that out.
Someone ring NB Kelly?
It's going to waste. Sad.
Yeah, at least both players agree that that definitely doesn't seem like the correct read on the rules.
Yeah, we've had some really interesting cards that are sort of nominally tech cards, or nominally the opposite of tech cards. In this case, Sealed Vault is supposed to be tech for Account Siphon. Excalibur just supposed to be an annoying ice, but weirdly they've worked out the opposite way. Sealed Vault has just been a proactive part of Wren's game plan, even though there were Account Siphons available. They never got played anyway. And Excalibur turned out to be incredible tech for Trickshot.
Yeah. The big card pool definitely makes up for some great interactions here.
So we've got a couple of servers here that haven't been rezzed in quite a while, if I'm tracking correctly with all this scrolling. Server 11, for example, been there for a long time. Not quite sure what that might be. And server 18's been here for at least a turn, but we've got 2 new servers as well, so a lot of choices to be made here for the runner. See this strike come down.
I wonder if one of them is like a good old chairman hero, the way you reduce the runner's hand size by 2 and then surprise kill them. But going through a feedback filter, that sounds very hard for Wren to like set up a combo, and maybe they don't want to res the CEO risking to give away several points to their opponent.
Yeah, we see Wren cash in the Sealed Vault here, so all that money comes back into the pool so that we can get this hostile rezzed. Snipes a Citadel Sentry from hand.
But that means, never mind. I was about to say that means that Bladderword is turned off, but with Wren rezzing the next Sealed Vault, it looks like we're still on track with dealing as much damage as we need.
Very nice. Oh, we might need to put 1 more in the vault there, I think. Yeah. To guarantee that both of them hit.
I want to point out something that I don't think will get played this game, but I think we've seen the rest of Silent Arbiter's influence on that vamp that you see in hand. It looks like the
Yeah.
plan to use all this money that the deck generates to kind of put down the corp economically.
Yeah, I'd love to see a vamp. That's we might have been the first people to play vamp in Woo.
Yeah,
at the
I want to say
Worlds
we
23,
were
but Silent following in the grand tradition.
making sure your opponent does not have the money to play the game. It looks like great strategy, usually.
Yeah. But here, yeah, Ransdeck is just built to play without money, right? That's exactly what it's good for. So the vamps and the account siphons, not exactly what you need. And we see some current back and forth while we've been discussing vamp here. We saw the enforced curfew played to overwrite the employee strike, and then the employee strike straight from hand to come straight back. So a little bit of classic eternal current fighting gameplay here.
Yeah, now, I haven't been paying attention to what the genotyping put back in the deck, but I don't think Ren had a lot of time to put more currents in the deck, which is usually like a good way to get through some kind of lock, like the employee strike you see here. So we'll see if Ren ends up regretting the decision of not shuffling back more currents.
But we do see now the second
never mind.
hostile and the second Bloodwort. Oh, we have the current as well. But
Yeah.
even with employee strike, Silent wasn't able to trash anything last turn with those two hostiles rezzed. And this Rizeki money just not going far enough, not quite getting there. With all this damage we've had to prevent with this feedback filter, we've just not been able to make enough money, even when the employee strike was active, to contest this board. Question is, can it find a kill before the 7 cards in R&D run out?
Yeah, at some points, agendas have to be somewhere, and if there's enough points in archives to just steal them, they'll be lights out for Ren, even if they can manage to line up a good enough kill. And with this compilation stealing one of the other words, looks like the clock is going to extend for the runner here.
Yeah, I mean, if we can just simul chip that compilation and use it once more on one more net damage asset, disregarding these hostile infrastructures entirely, and then draw a bit more. You're really putting Ren to the test here to find the pieces to make this kill actually happen, because there aren't many pieces left or much time in which to use them.
What do you think of Silent's decision of including Simulchip instead of Clone Chip here?
This is something I grapple with basically every time I build an Eternal deck, this Shaper. It's such a difficult choice because, in fact, this exact conversation was being had on the online District Championship stream yesterday, where people were talking about, is Simulchip better or worse than Clone Chip? And the answer is both, right? It's both better and worse. It does some things for you that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Like in this deck, for example, you woo out a Coalescence and then Simulchip it immediately for another Coalescence charge, turning your 3 credit profit into a 7 credit profit. Very powerful. But equally, Clone Chip means you don't have to worry about getting rid of a program in the first place. You can just bring back anything, anytime, increase flexibility for less power, I guess. It's a really interesting decision. And I don't know. Sometimes I split the difference and play 2 of each, which I feel like is always wrong. But it's so hard to decide.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting choice. We see here Silent Arbiter clicking through his final cards in the stack. However, with his same old thing, he's going to be able to play a Levy from the bin. So he's not particularly worried about getting grind out. It's more about the combo kill that Ren is going to put out. Otherwise, I think it looks like IG will be forced to score in some capacity.
Now, we did see the Kakarembo played last turn, a really big play for IG. Lets us fully flip the archives and install what turned out to be a clearinghouse, 2 advancements, but that's got cupsed. So again, that card really finding its worth, although not being used on the Blood Award, which is going to keep ticking here. But yeah, looking increasingly difficult for Ren to find a way to win here with just a few cards remaining in R&D. And those points have got to be hiding somewhere. You've got to assume most of them are in archives at this stage. Silent taking a look there at 20 face-down cards in archives. And the runner really sort of pulling the I'm not locked in here with you move.
It looks like the runner has more stamina than we thought.
Yeah. and still the levy's still available, as you say, although paying the 5 credits for it might be a bit of an ask, but it's as an emergency button, it's there for sure.
Especially
Or
when you have to
clicking for
consider
credits.
the Genetics Pavilion, that's going to limit how many cards you're going to draw from that levy. That sounds like a
That's
rough
true. That is
position to
a
be
good
in.
point. Yeah, you might need to go and get rid of that pavilion before. But we see, the runner just looking at the board and saying, I don't think I need to do anything. I'm going to click for credits. Sometimes that's just the most scary thing you can see as the corp. Just a runner who is confident that you don't have the threats to kill them, even if they don't interact.
Yeah,
quite
especially with that feedback filter slowly blocking more and more damage. If Silent Arbiter keeps on clicking for credits and the Rezeki keeps on giving him more and more money, Wren must show a lot more damage than they're currently doing to get the kill done.
Yeah, we do have 3 face down remotes, not quite visible at the moment, but as Silent scrolls, we'll see them, and 4 more credits. Wow. Okay. It's a lot of confidence. We'll see if Wren can punish Silent here for this.
I wonder if this will be the end of the game, like just the runner clicking for more and more money to just prevent more and more damage.
Yeah,
and the corp slowly decking out. 2 more cards in the deck.
There we go.
There
the
it is.
Concession. Yeah, this is something. An analogy I often think of with Eternal, but also generally with large card pool formats in any card game. Something we often see is that it's a bit like if Standard is like fighting a battle with like swords and muskets. Everybody kind of lines up, gets ready, and then charges at each other and fires their weapons, and somebody comes out the other side. Eternal is more like a nuclear war. Somebody fires a nuke and somebody else fires a nuke, and you make these big massive plays, and then at some point everybody's just completely in the dirt and you're just kind of scrapping to get the rest of the way over the finish line.
It really is how it feels.
That's that game is a great example of that, I think.
So here we have game 2, Wizards against Mtimukundu. We see from Wren's opening hand, we see a Siferd. It's like a really good piece of tech against Mti. Siferd, I think it's 2 points on the Eternal point list. A really good not current console that is going to push one of Silent's eyes all the way to 0 strength for very limited cost.
Yeah, famously an intentionally unbalanced card, or at least word on the grapevine at the time of its printing was that it was a card that was intentionally pushed to be really powerful to try and sell more copies of a certain data pack. You can really see that in the when it gets going, that card can just cook matchups and when the corp's relying on ice.
Yeah. On the other side, Mtimukundu, we've seen Mti played in the first 3 weeks. Usually what looks like a glacier-y kind of build, scary ice that comes out at you at almost instant speed as you're running. We've seen Augustus pilot the Charlotte plus La Costa grid engine to get the money going and be able to afford all these extremely expensive ice that the deck likes to run. We'll see if and how Silent gets to deal with this Siferd build that Wren's played.
Yeah. Let's roll into it, I guess. Yeah, so interested to see as well whether this MT deck is any different from Augustus's. Augustus playing the kind of Jindeki Glacier that we're familiar with them playing in Standard, out of modern IDs like Ag Infusion. Actually, to think of it, MT is newer than Ag Infusion, weirdly. It's just been banned in Standard for so long that you forget. The ID in Eternal has historically been used to play sort of more asset game plan, where you're just installing a lot of assets and they're kind of inherently protected by the ID that any of them could have an Nancy in front of them at any time. Oh, hello.
And that's a very different deck.
Wow. The Mushin Advance. Beautiful.
Very interesting. Very different from what I was expecting.
Yeah, and now deciding not to thimble rig on HQ. So yeah, Ren recognizing here that presumably we want to use the MT ability to protect server 1. So HQ is actually free to access. Unfortunately, we see the same thimble rig. Presumably, we see at least a thimble rig, 2 runs in a row there.
Where we clone chip down, that's gonna take care of the Timberlake at instant speed, and we see, oh my god, is that a Jumon?
We're cooking. Oh, this is perfect. Let's go. This is another standard legal card, but not one that sees a great deal of play. Pretty hard to score a 6 advancement agenda in standard. Silence found a way to do it. You'd love to see it. We just get to put 2 advancement counters on a card at the end of turn, every turn for the rest of the game. With that in the score area, there's nothing the runner can do about that. I can't think of a single thing in the card pool that would stop that effect from working. That's just going to happen every turn. I just produce 2 clicks and 2 colors worth of value and worth of bluffing potential every turn for the rest of the game. Really powerful play here.
Well, we're about to see Ren put down a turntable, shut down the agenda, I guess. That's the only way I can think of. But yeah, Shell Game T, by the looks of it, setting up, and with Jumon scored on turn 3, we're about to see a lot of value generated from that agenda.
There we go. 2 advancements on a Charlotte for free. Pretty good deal. Interestingly, we see another Vamp runner here. We've got Ren also playing Vamp. Although HQ now protected by up to 2 ice, so going to be a bit trickier to land that at this stage. We do have some breakers in the bin though, and the Cipher showing up to get us through some ice.
Cipher, unfortunately, famously expensive to put down, so it might take a while for Ren to get that going. Also, I don't think Silent has enough ice for that to be necessary right now, even though MT kind of will put ice on the board when you're not expecting it.
Yeah, it's kind of the second Jumon Warlock.
Oh god.
What are we doing? This is unbelievable.
Infinite value.
Yeah.
4 advancements each turn divided in 2 batch of 2s.
Wow. Maybe this is the reason why you're not allowed to score agendas in the paid ability window at the end of your turn. Is Jumon too strong?
That would definitely make the agenda much better. That's for sure. But yeah, we'll see how Ren deals with this, because this looks like hell to face. Even with your ice thrashing deck, this looks like a lot of possible shenanigans that go down.
Yeah, nice to see. We're seeing both Crew and Chisel chosen as the ice trashing cards of choice to go along with the Cipher, which makes sense because Parasite, historically often considered the most powerful such card, is pointed, I believe.
It's not pointed, it's just that it goes on rezzed ice. So that's usually the limiting factor. Chisel kind of works a lot better with Cipher in that regard. But
we're pivoting here.
So I need to find the agendas from R&D instead of having to handle them. We see a swordsman.
Swordsman just going to... we're just going to wipe it. Just going to wipe it with the Cipher. Not going to just take that damage. We want to access R&D a lot here.
Yeah.
With this medium to try and just find a way through the incredible action economy provided by this double Jumon. There we go. The third Jumon. 3 Jumons in score areas, folks. This might be the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, that's probably correct. Oh my god, and we see
the flat grid. Ooh.
Is that the agenda? It is.
There it
wow.
Is. Wow, absolute cooking. My compliments to the chef. Incredible deck from Silent here. I mean, I've not seen anything like this in any format ever.
Yeah, this looks like a work of art. I don't know how to describe it differently, but this is amazing. Scoring Jumon on turn 3 into scoring Jumon on turn 5 or 6. It looks like a unique game that will never happen again.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, this seems like it was kind of a best case game. Presumably the Jumon MT deck won't run out quite this smoothly every time. But yeah, when you have Mushin, Noshin into Jumon for your turn 2 play, you've got to feel pretty good about it.
Important to say that the Silent's opponent for the next few weeks are looking at the stream probably, so they know they know how to deal with or what they have to deal with going into week 5 and 6 probably. it'll be. I expect to see the deck kind of fall a little bit, or at least
Well,
runners
yeah,
be
but
more prepared in the dealing with
this
that.
this is the delightful thing about Mushin no Shin, right? Because we saw that Urtica Cipher accessed on R&D.
Oh
So,
yeah,
next time if you run you think, well, I'm going to have to deal with this empty trigger, but I've got to get to that 4 advanced card. It's definitely a Geomon. That's 8 damage, baby. It's it's mind games within mind games.
yeah. Put down an anemone to add to that with the MT trigger, and you got a recipe for a flatline.
Yeah, beautiful.
Next up, Ysengrin versus Toron. We see Eza, which we've seen a little bit from Jeff on phase 1. I think the card count is definitely a little bit higher. Jeff wrapping up the 54 Eza build here. We'll see what's changed, but we've seen the general game plan of using DDoS and Banker to get through these remotes, using Clump Vengeance to deal with the cards that the Corp has in hand, and just go to town with all the Sabotage and the Clump Vengeance and Rumor Mill to shut down what the Corp is doing, and then find the points in archives by the end of the game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if some of those cards Jeff's added are programs, because as we saw in a couple of games during the first phase, having no programs in your deck in a format where STS joint deployment is a played card is always a little bit of a risk.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Although Jeff knows who he's going to play in phase 2, so maybe he's adjusted. Maybe he saw there's not a lot of Wayland going around, and he doesn't expect the players he has to face to actually bring Wayland. So there's always this kind of two sides of the coin where you know what you're playing, you know who you're playing against, and maybe you're adjusting your game plan in that regard.
Yeah, and on the Corp side, we have Toron playing CI, which is a deck that Toron was playing in the first phase. In the first phase, it was the brain rewiring kill combo with some interesting little tech and counter tech pieces. And we'll see if it's the same CI we've stuck with here. Now, maybe we might have gone for the old 1-2 switch here to change things up to a scoring version, keep runners on their toes.
That would be a great switch, yeah. I think Toron has been talking very highly about that kill CI, and I mean, maybe people adjusted to it, and maybe he ended up switching. We'll see what happened in this game. Let's get going.
I'm excited to watch it, yeah. These are the two decks that I have picked up myself for the GLC Eternal League recently, so I'm excited to learn from the players who actually know how to play them.
Nice. See both player keeping, and we'll see what Toron does on turn 1.
Ice HQ always a good start for CI.
Install a remote that
Interesting.
instantly looks like a Jackson Howard or a Spin Doctor of sorts, or maybe a Wage Worker planted down early on.
Yeah, that would be the guess. We see the early Ghost Tongue and the Bangkok come down here. Oh, we had a little jump through the Spin Doctor resolution there.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're looking at a
here.
replay, folks, for you who are watching. So some of this might be a little quick. Fortunately, we had a bit of a problem with the recording on this game in particular. So bear with us as we move, ideally not too fast through this game.
Well, we do see a program there revealed off of presumably off an inject, which was the keyhole. So yeah, we do have a tool that is both a program in the deck for things that care about that, and also an added bit of R&D pressure. It's, if you've not seen keyhole before, it's like Stargate but with just all the brakes taken off, basically. Very powerful little game under there.
Oh, it's a Vanity Project.
Vanity Project, wow. So interesting choices being made here by Toron to dilute the agenda density. Vanity Project, famously the only 4-point agenda printed in the, certainly since FFG took over Netrunner. 6/4, no text, but 1 influence. So you're spending influence here to really dilute that agenda density, which maybe suggests that we are on some kind of kill plan.
Yeah, either that or some really, really convoluted fast advance plan, but definitely something that looks like a weird agenda suite, that's for sure. I missed the upgrade on HQ.
The upgrade on HQ was a Chrysium Grid, which
Oh.
Jeff elected to leave, so presumably suggesting that we're not running Chastushka or another card that might make us want to trash that Chrysium.
That makes sense, yep.
And we have the Clan Vengeance come down, so talked about this card a lot on the league over the past few weeks, but yeah, arguably the most powerful, certainly one of the most powerful runner cards in the format. Lets you just turn any damage you take. Every time you take damage, you put a counter on that Clan Vengeance, and then you can essentially return that damage back to the corp by trashing the resource to make them randomly trash that many cards from HQ. Really, really powerful card in this matchup in particular because, of course, CI has a massive hand size, as we can see, equal to its credit pool, which means that it's holding a lot of cards, and you can just build these Clan Vengeances up and up and up, and then smash them in a turn to wipe out a massive HQ and potentially just end the game on the spot.
Yeah, and absolutely powerhouse when it deals with handling combo corpse and finding accesses here and there. See a good old
Speaking of
vanilla.
powerhouses, yeah. Beautiful, perfect design, no notes, 0 cost, 0 strength, and the run barrier. Delightful card that is, unfortunately, at this instance, not going to stop the runner because Bankar is in play. And we've gone for an early Clan Vengeance for 2 here.
Interesting.
Twice. Interesting choice, yeah. So we're going for an Archives run here. See if we can just clean up this game straight away. And we find a second Vanity project. That'll do it. Wow.
Well, that was a quick one.
Interesting read. Yeah.
We haven't
really interesting read there. Oh, big deal. There's a big deal on the top of Archives. I missed that during the accesses. So that answers the question about the Vanity projects. Then we are actually looking to score them potentially.
That looks like an interesting choice. Yeah, big deal. Kind of tough to score a Vanity project even with big deal, but I can see the plan forming.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to pay the full, 23 credits to Biotic Big Deal, double advance, I guess that's a thing you can do.
That's a lot of money.
If anyone can do it, yeah, CI with YDL can get there. Toron in the chat saying that he was indeed cooking, but in that game we didn't quite get to see exactly what it worked out to. So we'll look forward to that in future weeks.
Absolutely. On the other hand, here we have the other matchup, and I'll start talking about the Corp first, because we've not seen a lot of it in Phase 1. We've only seen Wren piloting up, and I think they were on this Drago list. That's not particularly common, but I'm expecting Jeff to play the more standard med HPT kill. Although I'm not sure, but that's what everyone who's loading into an op game in Eternal kind of has to think about. Op, very very fast at building a board using Estelle Moon to like fuel all the HQ cards, and using op to trash something to get more and more cards on the board, and then using Mutually Assured Destruction, getting a clickback thanks to Jeeves, and firing down a high-profile target to deal any amount of damage necessary to kill the runner with 2 damage every card you trash with Mutually Assured Destruction. So really fast stack, really fast combo kill. That's definitely something that every player kind of has to be prepared. Luckily, suffers a little bit from having to deal with a rumor mill, but I don't think Toron will be playing rumor mill to shut that down.
No, I mean, and if he is, he has to find it in 210 cards, I believe, if I'm seeing that correctly.
That looks correct.
So even bigger than last time. Toron, we can assume definitely playing the World Tree deck. No question this time. And yeah, just looking to... Once, with the ability of Cabernet Sauvignon, we can set up the World Tree on turn 1, guaranteed every time, and then we just need fuel to feed to it. And the tech cards, you play more or less every tech card in the format, apart from where you're restricted by influence and eternal points. And yeah, that's you then try and adapt your game plan to whatever the corp happens to be doing. So we'll see which tech cards are available for the ob deck, assuming it is that kind of kill deck, and how quickly Toron can assemble them.
So one fun game I want to play with the chat and everyone is watching is that when Toron runs once with World Tree, I want to see how big the text box that shows up is, because that's going to be a really fun one. We'll have to scroll a bunch of times throughout this game, at least the player will, because that's going to be massive. Let me tell you that. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we'll see if we can just push the whole of the corpse board off of the top of the screen by extending that menu out, pushing Janet to the limit here. A mulligan from Jeff there. And thinking about this handful of such all-stars as Ankusa and All-Mighter.
All-Mighter sure is something.
Interesting cards. Yeah, I mean, it's a resource that you can sell to World Tree, and I guess if you fetch it with World Tree, then you're just netting a click.
It's also quite cheap, right? I think it's 0 cost to install.
0, yeah.
So definitely a good way to get into any resource. Toron here pondering about his decision. It plays to keep the hand. Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the kind of arcane mastery of the World Tree deck that Toron has shown. Is really what you just need is enough tools to turn the World Tree plus the other programs you fetch with Cabinesa on turns 1 and 2 into gas that then can turn into any card in your deck, right? So Toron just having a little think about that and deciding, we've got the pieces, and we just need to get this coalescence, turn it into some value with the spec work. Oh, we're not going for the World Tree straight away. Oh, and we see an SDS on the table. Oh, interesting.
That's not something you usually install, but an interesting way of dealing with World Tree quickly. If the runner can't find enough programs to steal it, maybe you just score it out and trash the World Tree early on, putting a dent into the runner's setup. Interesting play from Jeff.
Yeah, and interesting as well from Toron to decide, actually, I know how fast this combo deck can be. I need to contest some of these assets even before I try and establish my World Tree, because if Jeff starts to run away with assets on the table, then I could be dead real quick. As it turns out, Jeff has a bit of a slower turn to draw on icing the SDS here.
Yeah. Now unmasked, now that the runner knows exactly what's there, and without any one-cost self-trash assets or an Astel Moon going, looks like this op will take a while before it's presenting a kill line.
Yeah, and as such, Toron now switching to the World Tree plan, getting set up here, choosing from that massive list of programs. It's a second SDS on the table? Wow. Jeff using the same tech that was used against him, I believe, in previous rounds. Just SDS is on the table.
Yeah, although that doesn't look like the greatest mulligan. Suggests
a really tough mulligan for Jeff. I mean, if those SDSs stick, they're still cards you can trash to mutually assured destruction. So they do kind of still serve a purpose. But yeah, Toron taking the first one and probably going to be looking to go and get that second one pretty soon, unless we can overwrite it with a Spin Doctor or something.
Yeah. I don't want to correct you again, but I believe the mutual assured destruction has to trash res card, so it wouldn't be able to trash the SDS. Apologies.
That's okay. It's okay. it's what I'm here for on these streams. Apparently, we live and learn. Oh, a News Now hour. Hello. Now this is an interesting tech choice. This is a card that often gets talked about as a card. Should we play this card in Eternal? So the News Now hour says the runner cannot play current events. So it says, you got Rumor Mill? No, you don't. You got Employee Strike? No, you don't. Of course, you just have to go and pay 4 credits to trash it, and then you can play your currents. And it costs a massive 3 influence. So yeah, as we can see from Toron in the game chat there, expressing some dismay. Not a card that's often chosen to actually be played in Eternal, even though the text seems like it would be really good. But Jeff has chosen it here, so decided he's got some influence to spare, and just really, really doesn't want Rumor Mill to get played against him, presumably.
Yeah, that's my read on seeing that card. Although importantly, it doesn't clear the current, so it's not exactly the greatest way to deal with Rumor Mill. You have to get rid of it before you actually end up blocking it out. But an interesting way to deal with that, especially if you think that Ob can kind of tutor for this 3 influence card and kind of get the effect on demand in several board states.
Yeah, I mean, it's a card I looked at to try and fit into the Mad deck myself when I was playing it a year or so ago, but just finding that 3 influence is you have to cut some really, really good cards to be able to fit that into your deck. So it's a tough choice to make.
Yeah, 3 influence sounds like a lot. See Jeff pushing that SDS, trying to probably snipe out the World Tree, and we'll see if Toron ends up having a line to get into that remote, or if the correct choice is just to find the next World Tree and find enough credits to install it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we have to assume that there is a line to get into any given remote, basically, with a World Tree on the table and 195 cards in your stack.
Yeah.
But
although 9 credits might not be enough to be comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, we can always just click for 3 with, or 4 in fact, with Degdeer and Woo and Coalescence. And we're going for the Mayfly and the Cubone. So, yeah, just trying to make this work. See the border control. Presumably going to fire. Oh, interesting choice whether you let the Mayfly get burned before you fire or let the Cubone fire. Looks
With
like we're going to let
click
the
remaining,
Mayfly be used.
Yeah, you would kind of want to get Mayfly used and then get to protect the SDS on your next turn, on your next click, rather, with the different piece of eyes.
And yeah, Toron really having to think about whether to take this bait here and fire this Mayfly, or just, yeah, we are going to make the trade this Mayfly for the border control here.
Yeah, Mayfly also installed with Vu, I believe, so it probably goes away at the end of the turn, so Toron would have had to run something else and trash it anyway to get some value. And Jeff finding out the Enigma. All-Star Eyes played in every format ever. Just a really good 3-cost here that ends around and protects the SCS.
Yeah, maybe the most definitive multi-format All-Star in Netrunner history, I think.
Importantly, Jeff only on 2 credits at the start of his turn, so he doesn't have enough to score out the SDS. This is a really grim position to be in.
Yeah, and you have to wonder what's waiting in HQ here. If the best plays were 2 agendas out of hand, you kind of got to think maybe there's even 1 or 2 more still in there.
Yeah, the play is definitely not accelerating. You don't see Ob going for massive kill threats right now. The whole game is going around this single STS, which I don't think will win the game for Jeff, even if it gets scored. And Toron is doing his best to make sure that doesn't happen anyway.
Now we've found another Cubone to test this 2-ice remote this time, and Jeff deciding actually raising the automotive slice not worth the time here. So we're going to break in through this Enigma and whip this SDS, which, Mayfly interacts with SDS very nicely. You can feed it to steal before it trashes itself to its own ability. Oh no, we're going to World Tree it, never mind. Get the Hyperdriver and trash that Cubone for the SDS.
That makes sense. Although the Cubone on a piece of ice that the corp doesn't want to res is usually like a really good way of getting more money, kind of making your own magnum opus. But we see Toron not being particularly preoccupied with that and just installing the amazing Hyperdriver and probably using it next turn to set up even faster.
Yeah, exactly.
Second copy of Paywall implementation, replacing the first one that got removed after the steal. But with Toron on 6 points, this looks like a very hard hill to climb for Jeff.
Yeah, for sure. We've just not seen anything that's providing us with more cards. You know, these decks tend to play Estelle Moon. Presumably, despite the influence choices with News Now Hour, Jeff is still on Estelle. And then also, of course, we have Spin Doctors potentially, and easy access to Rashida by, we play 3 copies of Mark Gale. We functionally have 6 copies of Rashida if we want to. So the op has a lot of ways to draw cards. There is Mark, as I speak into existence. But yeah, and actually we're pivoting to Conduit here, just trying to end this game straight away. Not going to give any time for this Moon, for example, that we see on the top to get Jeff back into the game. And there it is, the SSL. Wow.
Quite the quick games against these two.
Yeah, a couple of quick games where just, these combo kill decks, you play your, or well, maybe Toron's deck wasn't a combo kill deck. Actually, we didn't really see the full implications of that deck. But anyway, combo decks choosing to play fewer, larger agendas to enact their combo game plan, and in fact, those are exactly punishing them by turning up in too large quantities at the wrong times and ending the game quite quickly.
Good games to both players. I believe that takes us just about halfway through. Those are some really fast games. I think so far in the first half, we had a couple like those 5 minutes, but we got some more gameplay for y'all for sure. How are we all doing? Are we ready for the second half?
Let's do it.
I'm going to bow out at this point, Andre. The mic is yours. You two enjoy. I'll be watching along from home.
Thanks so much for joining us, Cobra.
Enjoy the rest of the league, everybody.
Thank you. All right. So this is, again, part 2. Just to re-rack here slightly, this is the beginning of phase 2. So if you're just tuning in, all of the players, this was the first week where they can change their decks. So we saw some big changes. Again, we saw Jeff got off CI to get on op. So both identities were not too surprised he's playing. Now we're going to see the first Hayley Kaplan. We did not get to see Hayley in the first phase. So to see here with Larrea, what she's brewing up, if we look at that hand here, we do see an Aaron Moran, an Astrolabe, but I'm not sure. We're on 52 cards. Whether this is World Tree or not, I don't know. Could just be some good toolbox Hayley. What do you think about this Hayley Kaplan versus Skorpios? I feel like there's going to be, if this is like potentially pawn shop, there's a lot of things trashed, and recursion definitely happens in the Shaper deck. I'd be surprised if there's no like a Harmony AR therapy, or sorry, AR lab access, let alone whether it'll fire in time or not.
Yeah, it is going to be a really interesting matchup. Hayley, at least the more regular versions, usually like to run Levy, AR access, lab access to get back all the cards that they need. I'm expecting Larrea to play a lot of trashable stuff and being on Ace-ups, or maybe some different kind of value builds, something similar to what maybe Silent Arbiter was playing earlier on.
Yeah.
But the whole Shaper part of the identity of putting stuff in the heap and then bringing it back on the board to get more and more value is definitely going to be disrupted by Skorpios, who's going to like slow down any of those kind of effects.
So I was actually really interested to see this. Jai was the only Skorpios player for the first phase, and Jai never seemed that hot on his deck. He seemed okay with it. It was doing all right, but he didn't ever just seem like, didn't come off as being particularly effusive about the identity. So now with, a couple weeks of additional knowledge, and we saw some interesting ice. I think we saw like trebuchets. We saw some weird stuff in the last version of the deck. To see how Jai's going to tune the list against the expected meta, I'm very excited to see it. I don't know if there's any like big holes, but we're expecting here some trashing, some destroyer ice. Marcus Batty, mind you, is a very powerful ability that can just let subroutines fire, so it doesn't matter what your breaker suite is. And if your programs get trashed, they largely do just get removed from game. Hey, speaking of removed from game, we've gone through 4 games so far. We haven't seen a single blue moose. What's going on?
Yeah, Blue Moose, I mean, really powerful card. Only a single point in the point list, so definitely not a prohibitive cost. However, a little bit slow maybe for the format here and there. So people choosing to play more tech cards, more impactful, like 3 points, count siphons or degree mill, probably skimping on their credits and drip economy cards, trying to win quicker. And I mean, the games we've seen all were pretty quickly, except for maybe the AG one.
Yeah. So we'll see how that shakes out. Again, this is going to be an exciting matchup. It looks like we have a long one in front of us, so let's dive in.
Yeah,
Skorpios, the SDS deployment themselves says once per turn when a card is trashed, you can remove it from game. Now, trash doesn't mean discarded at the end of turn to hand size. So either an event is played, a program is trashed, a daily cast finishes once it gets all the credits off of it. Stuff like that will happen. This is a bit clumsy, unfortunately, on JNet because it doesn't stop the runner at every single ability where that is relevant, which I think is probably for the best. On the other side, we have here Larrea. She's looking at the hand. We have some Astrolabes. I don't think we're going to see more than 2 remote servers. We have Aaron Moran, a very pointed card. I think 2 points in the format. I might be mistaken about that.
Just the one, actually.
Just one? Okay, not too bad. But one of the most powerful cards we've ever seen in Standard. Looks like we're going to go for the mulligan. We get to see some interesting cards here. Firstly, Eater as an AI breaker. Allows you to break ice, not caring about what the type is. Now, you can't touch cards, but when you have a deep dive in hand, that can be a win condition on its own.
Yeah, looks like Larrea landed on what maybe her deck wants to do with the deep dive into Eater, trying to see the top 8 cards of the deck and steal up to 2 cards and Jai pushing right away a new remote, installing a ice in front of it to kind of scare the runner away.
Now, I'm assuming here at Rashida Yahim, I'm not sure what else we can expect on the table behind a single ice. The question is whether you're able to face check before you install any cards. So something like that Trebuchet or something like the Ballista at least just ends the run. But Larrea has some really good setup here, whether it's an Ace Ops on turn 1. We don't really have anything to pawn right off the top, but we do have the Hyperdriver for setup. And we do have an Astrolabe if we want to get extra MU here. So just considering her options here. Pawn Shop, I'm assuming we did see a spec work. So whether it's Coalescence and Cash or just Coalescence and whatever else you want to throw out, it looks like we're going to be trashing our own board state, that's for sure.
Yeah, if it's not Cash, I would expect some kind of Harbinger. So another card that really goes well with Ace-Ups to kind of generate some value. And I think we'll see this self-unifying code turn into either of these 3 cards to generate more value.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have 4 credits, so we can get the Coalescence and pawn it right away. Notably, Hayley says the first time a turn you install a card, you can install another card of the same type. So unfortunately, Larrea there did not have a great hand for that. Events sometimes can be a bit ugly because they never work with Hayley well, but it was a mixture of things. We could install 2 programs, but we don't have enough MU. We only have 1 hardware. We only have 1 resource. And sometimes that does happen, but 1 diesel from now, I don't think that's going to be a problem. Jai cracking the Rashida. Still jamming, and with an upgrade there, again, Marcus Batty can be a real rude one. I don't know whether we go and see Zato City Grids as a way to confirm end the runs or trash program subroutines. Those can be mean, but we've got a bit of a clown card. I would actually be quite scared of that, even if I knew what those cards were.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, there we go, the Harbinger I was talking about. And using the Hayley Coupling trigger to install the Hyperdriver on the corpse turn.
So cool.
Yeah.
So this is a Harbinger. It's kind of like a Coalescence, as in it's something you can trash to things, but specifically it doesn't have text besides you can trash it twice because the first trash installs a face down. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that first down install, the face down install eats the Hayley trigger. Is that correct?
So it used to be that way. However, NSG changed the interaction a few years back now.
Sick.
So you don't have to worry about the Harbinger coming back and eating the trigger.
All right. So if you see a face down card there, it has no type, it has no text. It's just an installed card. So that means that Larrea, she can pawn that with the Ace Ups pawn shop. We're setting up also with an Aaron Moran and Beth Kilrain Chang, 2 very fantastic, unique connections. Beth is going to get some effect based off of how the corporation is doing credits wise. So it looks like we're just going to get a credit here, maybe get a card draw. And then Aaron Moran, once you start stealing agendas, you get almost unlimited. It does have a limit, but you can clear tags and draw cards at instant speed. Very, very powerful ability.
Really good to find in early, especially in a matchup where you don't expect the tags to be important. So you get as many triggers as you can, as many draws as you can from that Aaron Moran. And with double deep dive in hand, I think Larrea is just like an Hyperdriver away from landing a lot of access on R&D.
Yeah, she could have popped off maybe last turn. Now, you definitely do want a card on the table to be able to interact with what you're assuming is 9 points of SDS drone deployments. If I'm not mistaken, Skorpios is a 44 card deck. Ooh, looks like we're going to get some cards on the table. That's a Tucana. Let's see what we're scoring out here. It is just a standoff, so technically has text. And so now the question is, does the runner want to trash their own board state? Or will Jai get a card and credits with a click left? So you could go ahead and trash your Harbinger face down, and then Jai doesn't have that many good options to trash on this board state. I imagine if you're going to pawn it for 3 credits, that might be a reasonable trade.
Yeah, I mean, especially when with Larrea on 0 credits, I don't think Jai is particularly unhappy to see the Harbinger go. And we see Larrea thinking about her decision here because that's definitely not an obvious choice. Oh, never mind. We're waiting on a Tucana.
Oh, Tucana first?
That makes more sense.
Oh, cool. So with the Tucana first, what can you do with that interaction now? It's a Tithonium that's going to be exposed there. So that card can be res technically for free by just getting rid of the standoff because it is in the score area after the Tucana fire, which is a really weird interaction. So instead of resing it for 3 fewer, you can actually res it entirely for free.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Jai here forced to res the Titanium because he has enough money to do that.
Oh yeah,
or actually no, I think removing the agenda from the game
to res
instead.
For free.
Yeah.
Says I think he messed it up using less kind words, but looks like we might go through that again. I think Larrea is not standing in the way of the standoff, so Jai just gets the free money and the free cards. Now that card draw went off before the Tucana. I'm pretty sure Jai is running multiple copies of Tithonium, but if that Tithonium is in hand now, you can't grab it with Tucana, so the ordering there on that turn does matter just a bit. But standoff will be a card and 5 credits, and Larrea wants to keep her cards to be destroyed or to get their forward momentum. There's the Tithonium. Oh, Aaron Moran is just whenever an agenda gets scored or stolen. It's been a while. I thought you had to do this stealing.
No, it's whenever, and
Oh
it's
my
particularly important. I
God.
think when it was printed, it was particularly important for breaking news.
Yeah.
So it completely deals with breaking news, and amazing card in this situation to get as many cards as Larrea needs.
Yeah, breaking news, very powerful. We haven't seen so much of it so far in the league, and Larrea is going to riposte there, pawning the face down card. Something else in the remote server. Jai did have an extra click there. So that Titanium does have some pretty mean subroutines. A 5 strength barrier with 3 relevant subroutines. We'll see what Larrea's breaker is. So far, we only see the Eater, which can break that, but it's not going to be able to steal the agenda.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the best setup to deal with this remote. And we see a Leprechaun, interesting include in the list. We also see the whole list.
Yeah, and there's actually, you see the point system there. So Employee Strike seems to be the current. Now we are been removing cards from the game. Now removing Hyperdriver, that does that on its own. It looks like Jai chose to remove the SMC, so not a huge deal. And now here, what's really interesting is with Hayley, you can always use the Aaron to give yourself more options before you commit to the double install. We're asking for hold on here, but the idea is you could do Leprechaun and SMC and Host for a single click. Now 3 credits is the issue. We have a Creative Commission and a Trick Shot, so there is some burst econ, but a fair bit of it is going to be a bit slower. Ooh, I think we got a break screen here. Is Larrea doing some digging around?
Interesting.
Cool, we're gonna hide our tech here. This is quite nice. I don't think I've seen this in the full art. This is the pantograph from System Gateway, from Martin de Diego Sadaba. I like this art a fair bit. Free zoom and enhance. Yeah, I'm assuming this is part of the recording, so it looks like there's some secret tech going on. Let's see how long. Okay, it's only for another more seconds.
Very short. Okay, good to know.
Cool.
I was scared about how long this break screen would last, but yeah, it doesn't look terribly long.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a privacy screen. Yeah, we're back.
Yep.
All right, looks like we're okay. So now we can set up again. We haven't spent any clicks so far. We got a free card draw off of Aaron. We have the Leprechaun, a daemon that can host a lot of programs. Very greedy card. 2 programs that take up no MU. Currently, Larrea doesn't have a great target for the pawn shop unless you want a self-modifying code for a Harbinger. I'm not sure if we're going to see Reaver in this list. I don't know if that's fast enough for the format, but is another card that supports the Trash Forward package. Drawing up after that, getting a Hush. Now, Hush might not have too many relevant triggers unless Border Control shows up in this matchup. We're going to go ahead, last click, remove that Creative Commission played from the game.
Yeah, which I mean, Border Control is still a very good card. I'm expecting to see it in almost any Wayland in the format, as we've seen in Standard. So it is really good in Eternal. And we see Jai scoring off an Eminent Domain, a card that I think is getting really good play, seeing really good play in Standard, pulling out archers, and I'm expecting something similar here, as Jai is going to install 2 different pieces of ice from R&D, paying 1 for one on them and then installing the second one for free.
Yeah, scoring an Eminent here and getting both an Archer and also functionally a Tithonium for free if you forfeit the Eminent is pretty wild board state development. Those are 2 of the meanest ice in the format that you have to deal with nearly all the subroutines. And currently Larrea, obviously wants to run central servers with 2 deep dives in hand. We'll see if Jai bolts down R&D or just keeps pushing in their remote server. Looks like Tucana's going to start. Tributary. Whoa. Surprised to see that.
Oh my god, down. Never mind the Archer. This is a great way to deal with all these resources that Larrea put down. And they're not going to last forever unless she gets her way into the server and pays 5 credits to deal with that corporate town.
Yeah, Eminent Domain can grab anything from your deck and res it for free, and that includes ignoring additional costs. So this corporate town, which normally costs an agenda to forfeit, is now behind Tithonium, behind an unres dice, on top of potentially defensive upgrade. And if Larrea doesn't deal with this with like a pinhole threading, for instance, that is just going to be saying, hey, you have no more pawn shop. So Larrea really has to consider moving this turn. Now, Tributary doesn't do anything. You can run central servers. We do have a window here to get the Hyperdriver if we really want to just pop off this turn. I just don't know if Larrea has exactly the credits. I think she can pawn her, she could, in theory, pawn the Leprechaun and get a double deep dive this turn, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think I'd rather pawn one of the resources that's gone away, but that's definitely an option.
So Hush is going to be installed on the Tributary to stop it moving around. We still have Beth, which will give us a credit. Aesop's Pawn Shop, we're going to get rid of the Leprechaun. So now we do have 7 clicks and 6 credits, which means you can run 3 central servers and still have a bunch of clicks left to do deep dive into deep dive and still use clicks on that. I think Larrea might just send it here. Again, that corporate town is going to be a problem for you. There's no way around it.
Absolutely. And I mean, with Larrea seeing her engine getting destroyed turn after turn, I think she's going to pull the trigger here, and that's exactly what's happening.
And with tribute
Archive shows nothing interesting.
Archer, yeah, Tucana. Tributary on HQ is also interesting. If you run R&D first, if the corporation wants to fire that subroutine, they have to draw a card, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what the text on Tributary is? It's been a minute.
It might be a May, so you might not be forced to do that, but definitely that's exactly what it does.
So now if Jai wants to draw that border control, it is just another card that Larrea can see off the deep dive here. And on exactly 6 credits, we have 4 clicks after this. We can see technically 9 points and still steal. Again, we did see a lot of small agendas too, so sometimes the density can get a bit messed up, but we're expecting at least SDS drone deployments, and that hush is very important on the table. Friends in high places, we're going to go for the deep dive. Look at, again, the remove from the game slot. This has 1 SDS drone deployment in it. We see some Jackson Howards, but only 3 points here. We are going to steal that for sure. That means all the other SDSs are entirely safe, unless Larrea can fast install a program, and that seems really tricky here.
There's not great odds for Larrea here, but she has a click now to install a program if needed.
We're using Aaron? So really cool.
She decides not to and fire the deep dive anyway.
Ooh,
she finds an SSL, but unfortunately not enough points to win.
So that's only 6 points. Again, yeah, we had to click there if we wanted to get down a program to deal with the SDS, but that's going to take Larrea to 6 points. Now HQ is technically open. We're assuming that minimum could be the border control and R&D, but if there's an agenda, does Jai have one in hand? We just looked through 16 cards and only saw 2 agendas. Whenever that happens, either you can say I'm unlucky or there can just be points in hand. We did see some of the discards. Archer, Tucana discard make a fair bit of sense, but Larrea still has 2 clicks here. This could be the last turn of the game if she can find the pressure. Jai does have a Hunter Seeker potential next turn. We still also have the Hayley double install, so we're just going to get the Harbingers on the table. Those are just cards we can sacrifice, as much as the Aesop's Pawn Shop probably is going to be around next turn.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Putting down programs, they don't cost anything. They don't cost MU. They don't cost credits. They just hog in the hand space. But I don't expect the Hazel's Pawn Shop to stick around long, so I don't expect them to generate much value, unfortunately.
Looks like we're going to remove from game. That's Jai. Yeah. I assume these 2 folks are on voice chat talking about what they want to fire on their ability.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's what they said at the start of the game. So I'm expecting Skorpios to kind of work in a bit of a smoother way rather than
in chat,
the clunky way that Jaina implements it, unfortunately.
So looks like Jai there is now going to be drawing into unknown cards. Very important to understand that once you go for a deep dive, the cards are returned into R&D, but R&D is shuffled. So Jai is drawing unknown cards, and that corporate town is going to trash again a resource for free before start of turn. So that means probably the pawn shop there that's looking on an extra, 12 credits worth of trashables is going to go down. We'll see if Jai has a Hunter Seeker, whether you really need to fire it on this table. Technically, the Beth has some value here, but not massive priority targets. The Simon chip sometimes, it looks like the Beth is going down. The pawn shop is staying.
Jai doesn't agree with your understanding of the board. And I think what I'm looking for mostly is that symbol chip that might allow Larrea to get some programs back later on. In case Jai ends up trashing more than one at a time. I think Jai wants to set up a lock, and any kind of recursion is maybe what he's looking for to deal. Also, I think that's his last window to play an Hunter Seeker for the rest of the game, unless he can feed a standoff to Larrea.
Yeah, there you go. There's the Hunter Seeker. So it looks like both of the resources are going down. Not a real choice which one you wanted to deal with. Maybe that was top decked. I don't know. But both of the econ resources are now destroyed here. Now Larrea again still has a simul chip, still has 2 spec works in hand, so she can blast off a bit and still use those harbingers, which is quite nice. You might want to keep one face up. Again, a face down harbinger is not considered a program, so you cannot forfeit it or trash it, to steal an SDS drone deployment. And Jai's buttoning up a HQ there, which while you could say you can just run it through the tributary, I'm assuming there's an agenda in hand.
Yeah, there could be. And with 2, if I'm not mistaken, SMCs removed from the game already, Larrea doesn't have that many options to find the breakers she needs to get into these servers. This is going to be a tough challenge, except maybe using that Eater, but that doesn't find you the points that you need without the deep dives.
Yeah, Eater, very interesting. Again, once you breach, you can't touch cards. So this will be paired with successful run triggers, things like deep dives. We actually are at a situation where a notoriety could close the game out. As much as I'd be surprised to see that, I'd be pretty excited. That does technically work together. We also could be playing things like Keyhole or Stargate, things that just see cards and have abilities that are beneficial, but don't require, that sort of breach touch card step. So it doesn't work with Conduit, but it does work with things like this. So Larrea, we are assuming that she might not be on any other breakers. So let's see how wide her win conditions possibly can be here.
Yeah. Interesting situation. Meanwhile, Jai is not threatening to score right away. The corporate town is here to deal with one more resource, and I feel like Jai wants to keep the lock going a little bit longer, deal with potentially the third Ace-ups down the line.
Yeah.
But then again, he has to find an avenue to score more agendas. Otherwise, this doesn't look like a winning situation yet. And interestingly, we see Larrea playing both Simulchip and Clone Chip. So we're going back to the same Shaper discourse of what do you want to pull back, which installing hardware you want to play in these games, and she ends up playing both.
Yeah, Clone Chip, mind you, the Proto Simul Chip, it just has less text on it. Not obviously better, not obviously worse. Are they both pointed, or are either of them pointed in the format?
No, they're both free.
Oh, wow.
You get to
Cool.
pick and choose.
Cool. So you can build your own suite, but Clone Chip just reinstalls cards. And that's really nice with Hayley, mind you, because you can fire Hayley's once per turn install a clause trigger on the corporation's turn. So you can install 2 programs with the Simul Chip if you have at least 1 in hand, 1 in your heap. Get out, Corporate Town, Aaron Moran, Skorpios, removing the Aaron from the game. Okay. Oh, I think there's a spectator. Yeah.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you know who Yoloman 420 is, because that's at least in between some people I know, that's a known Smurf. So
very funny.
That's interesting. I'm not here to out anyone, but the players know exactly who Yoloman 420 is, I believe.
Jackson Howard on the table, getting an Astrolabe draw. This is, again, Proto Spin Doctor. So if this is left unchecked, shuffling back 3 cards is not going to be massively important. More so, though, that you give Jai the ability to always click to draw 2, which that is something that you need to deal with sooner than later. You were mentioning this, like the corporate town, definitely a bummer for the runner here, but the fact that it's taking up the remote server, it's basically denying Tucana any sort of forward trigger, is kind of a mixed bag for Larrea. It might not be the worst thing, as much as her economy here is now obviously a bit rough.
Yeah, we'll see if Larrea ends up waiting on her last Ace-ups pawn shop and then installing it once Jai pushes the next agenda. Yeah. Jai has a lot of points to score before actually getting to win the game. So she has time to kind of find the cards she needs and build up a board state again. Right now, looking maybe for the 3rd deep dive to close the game out.
Yep. We're assuming there's one more. Again, 20 cards left to go through. Aaron Moran has been stopped. We're not going to get a lot of draw after the Astrolabe as well. We also have an upgrade on R&D. And again, while it could just be a Chrysium, which would go pretty far into this deep dive matchup, the problem is, like with Eater, you can't trash the Chrysiums if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how you deal with that.
Yeah, that's a very tough situation. The Slap Vandal might be good enough to deal with that.
Oh, cool.
And the Trick Shots credits are definitely going to help, but Larrea needs some other way to do that, definitely.
Again, Eater, you just cannot touch cards. So you make a successful run, and any trigger that cares about that, you're not allowed to access cards. Now the corporate town, not trashing anything. It still does do something. It stops Larrea from installing resources. That's at least what Jai thinks is happening. Larrea doesn't have any resources in hand. So we'll see if Jai pivots here. Larrea only on 6 credits. Tithonium is still looks impossible to deal with well with this breaker suite. I guess... What is the one that used to be in the revised core set with like run a remote server? Singularity, something like that? This is a real card, I'm pretty sure. I don't think we're playing it. I think it's a lot of influence. 3 influence, run a remote server, it's a double, cost 4, and then it basically has the text mostly of what Light the Fire does. So I think we see the list here. I don't think there's another way to get good accesses. No notoriety, 3 deep dive. In terms of multi-access, I didn't see anything. I think it's just deep dive.
Yeah. It looks like just deep dive, and I was looking at the programs, and I don't think I saw any real fractors. And unfortunately, that single Slap Vandal does not go on the Tithonium.
Yeah.
Tithonium has a very annoying text that says you cannot install programs. You cannot host any card, I think, something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, there's a lot of wild text on Tithonium. It did get banned right when the Automata initiative came out, which is probably a good thing for a world without paperclip, let alone a world with a lot of Arisana. But this cannot host cards. It is one of the very few cards in the game with that text, if not the only card with text like that.
I think something like that, yeah. It's similar to Magnet in a way that it deals with cards installed on them. I wonder how the interaction with Hush works. I'm not super certain about that one.
I think Hush wins. Hush usually wins. Hush beats Magnet. I think that's enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, but you can install a Hush on Magnet legally. I don't know if you can install a Hush on Titanium. Legally, and then have the text be active, but we don't have to worry about it right now. I think the only Hash we had is in the bin, and unless Larrea wants to install it back and figure out how that works, we're fine for now.
Now, Jai still has a fair bit of work, and he looks like he might be starting here. Install double advance on top of the corporate town. So an SDS drone deployment. If that ever hits a Leprechaun, Larrea loses obviously a lot. You can remove from game the Eater, so you know the Breaker is just not coming back. But obviously all your eggs are in one basket. You lose the Hyperdriver, and Larrea hasn't cracked the Hyperdriver yet. So there's also a chance that she wants to keep the Hyperdriver around for a deep dive turn where she can deal with what she thinks is a border control in R&D that she saw off the top of the deck. So obviously, all our eggs are in one basket, but even if the Eater was in its own basket, if you lose the Eater, the game is not going to be good for you.
Yeah, that SDS is definitely scary. And, I mean, the deck usually runs the Simul chip and Clone chip to get them back, but with Skorpios on the other side of the table, that's not happening. So you cannot rely on those tools to get them back. And rig shooting is going down.
Yeah. Larrea, considering this again, start a turn, you can remove the Hyperdriver to gain 3 extra clicks, have that 7-click turn, even more sometimes with Beth. Looks like we're just going to warp into the future. So this is a 7-click turn. Again, the remote server. Definitely a defensive upgrade is our guess, and we're going to start straight with the trick shot. We're assuming this is a border control. We'll see what the upgrade is, but the tributary just going to slide over there, so everything's going to get additional strength. It is only for this run, though, so the tributary rerun I don't believe is affected. And Jai can do some ice installation and some card drawing if he wants to.
Yeah, I think the rerun is safe. Also, I think the tributary only says when it talks about ice on that server, but it might be wrong on that side.
No, tributary is everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Ag Confusion support. Pretty good.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. Looks like Larrea is breaking this with the Eater. It is a bit expensive. Mind you, Eater just has the breaker math on Corroder, so that 2 for 2 strengths, 1 for 1 subroutine, 1 for 1 strength. So we're going to be breaking that for a fair few credits here. Again, you couldn't just you can slap through it. Oh, it was just slap. Okay, that's a lot cheaper. Excuse me.
Yeah. We just dealt with the draw and not with the additional strength, so the next ice will definitely be a little bit expensive if Jai decides to res. But I think Larrea is trying to lower the credit count in Jai's bank account so that the SDS maybe takes a little bit longer to come down.
We have a bit of a read that this could be a border control that was seen off the top of R&D before the tributary fired. Oh, looks like it's an archer though instead. So 8 strength archer here. So that is going to be difficult to deal with the Eater. It's 6 to boost as a starting point, and then you have to deal with at least 2 of the subroutines that are going to trash your programs. You could maybe end the run. You could give Jai 2, but here we have 8 credits. I think we can just barely not get blown out here, but not going to be able to run the remote server after this.
You don't get to go through the eyes. You don't get to see what upgrade that is, even though you would not have been able to deal with it in any way. You don't get to access. So I think Jai is pretty happy with this. And that's a Marcus Batty. Never mind.
Marcus Batty. We're playing a side game. Now we both all have money here. Now a lot of folks will play the side game before you break the ice, because then the ice still fires. And it means that if you trash the one breaker, the rest of the archer fires. Now that's not super important here, because if part of the archer fires, it functionally does everything you need it to do. But you got to see in real time, Larrea pick the side game bid. You don't normally see this when you spectate a JNet tournament.
Yeah, also important to say that Larrea has exactly enough money to deal with both trash run program subroutines on Archer. So
if she doesn't
Jai
bid.
Jai can hedge his bets, knowing that if Larrea bids 0, then she does and he bids something different, then he gets to trash something. But if he bids more than 0, then she doesn't get to trash to deal with all the subroutines. Yeah. So Jai is definitely in a really good position here.
Super relevant math here, forcing the archer. So see what Larrea pays. It's 0 to 2, so it looks like the Marcus Batty is going to hit. We hit different numbers, so that means you can resolve Is it the whole ice or one subroutine? I believe it's only one subroutine on the ice.
Only one subroutine,
Yeah.
yes.
So trash program is going to be the case, and then we're going to have to hit the archer again. This is done during the approach after the runner, she's decided not to jack out. So we're going to eat the whole archer.
Yeah, in this situation, hitting one subroutine or using all of them kind of does the same thing as Archer is going to deal with the rest of Larrea's programs.
Now the
only
eater,
waiting for Jai to remove.
The eater was removed from the game, so that means that the Slap Vandal will be safe here. You have to trash the programs, mind you. You can't choose not to. They are trash program subroutines, and so the Slap Vandal will be destroyed, but it will be safe in the heap unless there's some sort of arc lockdown, which I'd be very surprised for. Which means now Larrea, I think, only has one breaker for the rest of the game, which is just a single Slap Vandal. That seems really quite difficult here.
That looks like a really tough situation to be in. And maybe you can sneak through different tools. I haven't looked at the list deeply enough, but it looks like a really tough spot to be in.
Running HQ, love it. Again, she can only make so many more accesses. Once there's 2 ice, she has a problem, and that is exactly an ice that she can get through. Ice wall 1 strength. If she wants to go ahead and commit the Slap Vandal to this, the problem is if she does commit the Slap Vandal to it and Jai overinstalls and trashes the ice, he can just remove the slap from the game. So Larrea needs to bet if she's running HQ here, there's definitely an agenda in there, and with something in the remote server, that might not be the case. Creative commission.
Additionally, if that's an SDS, then the one we were speculating earlier about, getting down your Slap Vandal only for it to be thrashed and removed right away does not look like a great play. And we'll see if Jai ends up scoring that agenda or using whatever that advanced card is, or if he ends up kind of securing the board. And it looks like with additional ice on HQ, that's exactly what Jai is doing.
What's super goofy on this exact board state is with exactly 1 Slap Vandal, you can run R&D and just break the end the run subroutine on the archer. The problem is that with the tributary, that's an 8 strength archer, and Slap Vandal doesn't get that high. Like you actually have to move, you have to like bait the tributary off, and then Jai has to follow the tributary, and then you can run R&D for a single, like, hopeful run.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We'll see if Jai ends up advancing the ice wall to get out of the Slap Vandal range as well. That would be a really fun interaction.
It's like we're drawing up a bit here again. A triple advance. We did 1 slow advance there, so it looks like it's an SDS that Jai just wants to hold and make an awkward situation here. Installing a Coalescence. Employee strike's also coming down, so it means that Jai won't be removing things from game. Now here, if that's an agenda in the remote server, this employee strike is not going to stay on the table for very long, so we'll see how that interaction is going to come up. But with an agenda with triple advance in the remote server, it looks like that strike might just be thrown out, and there you go, SDS. Going to eat the Coalescence, and that strike is not going to stay for more than 2 clicks.
Yeah. Luckily, this means that Jai does not get to remove anything with the SDS trash.
Is that how that works?
I don't think... I think the SDS triggers before, because it's a corp trigger rather than a runner trigger.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So the current goes away after all the corp triggers, and that means that the card gets trashed before Skorpios is unblanked.
Got it. And we got an Ice Wall on Archives for free with Tucana. Now, that's just something to be in the way. We know the Eater is not coming back anytime soon, but it just means it's that much harder to fire the last deep dive off, which already seems pretty difficult here. Jai has 1 more click. If there's an agenda, does it go straight into the remote server on top of what we think is Tithonium into an unknown ice into a Marcus Baddie? My guess is yes. Jai finding out if he can Skorpios through strike. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to matter that much. That Coalescence is not super important.
Yeah, Larrea played the employee strike for a reason, so that might be there might be something behind that. Just the 2 credits from the clone chip later on might actually be important, given that we have a simul chip that to help find more programs from the bin in hand.
Last click, Friends in High Places is going to return a Marcus Baddie onto R&D and a Rashida Yahim to server 1. Again, such a busted 1 influence card from back in the day. Just getting 2 cards on the table for a click and a credit. And we know they're very powerful cards. Simulchip going to be used to get the Hush back. And it looks like we're going to get the Muse to hit the table against Slap Vandal as one of our options. This means you cannot move the Tributary, but it still does have subroutines. It just can't be repositioned. So looking at our options here, not that many options. These are all our programs we have access to, either in the stack, the heap, or the grip, if I'm not mistaken. Or this is just the heap we're looking at right now. Excuse me, it's just the heap.
It's just the heap, I think, yes.
Yeah. So it looks like we're going to go for our HQ here. Again, if there's an agenda, does Jai just jam into the remote server? It looks like Larrea wants to take a shot here and find out. Skorpios was used on the clone chip, so we do have an ability here to do some recursion if we'd like to. And it looks like that's going to be a board control. We were missing one of those. So if we want to break that, we have to get this. Oh, it's really hard because you have to put the slap vandal on it. And then if the border control goes, so does the slap. It looks like we're just going to bounce.
Yeah, this looks like an impossible board state to deal with.
Yeah.
Given Larrea's setup and Jai removing all the pieces that were necessary to get through ice. This looks like a very dire situation that's slowly going in Jai's favor.
Yeah, Jai still has a bit of work to do. That is likely the last slap vandal here. If Jai just installs a piece of ice on HQ and trashes the ice wall and can remove from game the slap vandal, that might limit Larrea to having no more breakers for the rest of the game. Again, I'm not sure how many slap vandals there are. We can't check the heap, mind you. This is a recording. It's not like we can click through to check. But Jai just going to push it, install advance. Only on 3 credits, but the Tithonium on its own does have a lot of valuable subroutines, and there's still a defensive upgrade to deal with.
Yeah. Larrea doesn't have anything right now that deals with the Tithonium, so she can't exactly get in the server without something else.
Jai's going for a full undo turn. Okay, we might go on to a different journey here. But it looks like that wasn't the play. So again, Rashida and Mandatory Draw gives us 4 extra cards. And notably, Tithonium, as you said, has that text. You cannot put the slap vandal in it. So that forces Larrea to actually get a breaker down and then spend some money, which is really quite difficult.
Yeah. Very tough spot between the corporate town dealing with her economic engine and then all these eyes kind of being really good at dealing with her icebreaker setup.
Yeah.
It looks like a very, very tough spot.
So Jai here thinking, again, install advance is what we saw in the first iteration of this turn. It looks like that's going to be the same case. Now here we might just discard different cards, or we might have advanced a different thing, but it's just a standoff. So
interesting.
Very interesting. Standoff again. Larrea can trash some of the face down cards. Actually, she's going to trash the Muse. Again, you do need programs for the SDS drone deployment, so we'll see how valuable those face down cards are. But if Jai wants the 5 credits in the card draw, and here you might be a bit over hand size at the end of the turn, that's for sure. Jai's going to have to trash the own board state, and that just gave Jai an excuse to go get rid of that ice wall, which gets rid of the coalescence, or sorry, the slap vandal. And now Jai can remove from game the slap vandal, if I'm not mistaken.
Larrea has more of those Arbinger face down. Interestingly, she decided to trash the Muse, trying to bait Jai into removing that, maybe not getting rid of the... Yeah.
Very, very cool. If Jai flinched there and removed it from game, but I do still think we have the Skorpios ability pending. And it looks like we're going to trade. We keep trashing the remote server losing an ice. Nuka is also leaving. This is the furthest I've seen a standoff trash battle in a long time. Now Jai has to deal with real cards. We know on R&D the upgrade is a Marcus Batty. But all these cards, arguably the Ice Wall and Archives isn't relevant. Every other card is really relevant on this board state on Jai's side. Larrea can definitely lose the Akamatsu, or sorry, the you know the one.
Yeah, the Astrolabe.
The Astrolabe, thank you. Now that trashed a 2 for 1. We are definitely standing off here. So notably,
really good send-offs.
You still have to beat a Marcus Batty, but if for some reason the Slap Vandal, if there's another copy or it doesn't get removed from game, you can make one run through the Archer. The Marcus Batty might end the run. There's no way. Can Larrea give the Simul chip? There's no way.
I mean, she doesn't have that many more programs, and she does. Wow.
All right, Jai, you have to take one more card, and Jai, I don't think can.
The problem is that I don't think that Tucana triggered yet. Which means if Jai trashes the Tucana, he doesn't get the trigger.
Yeah. Scorp, Slap Vandal, yeah. Jai is clarifying in the chat, the Skorpios will remove the Slap Vandal, so that Simul chip has less relevant text for sure. But Jai definitely needs the credits here. Jai trashed the Marcus Batty, so finally Jai gets it. We trashed like 5 or 6 cards on that on both sides of the table. We get the Tucana to fire here. Go and install an Archer for 3 credits fewer and just go ahead and res it. HQ is safe. R&D is the least safe. If Larrea has 1 Slap Vandal, she can touch 1 card. I don't know how many slaps are in the list, but Jai has to be worried. 1 trick can get 1 access on R&D. And so far we've seen only 9 points checking archives. 10 points, excuse me. Hunter Seekers, Marcus Batty. Right. We get to see a bunch of the ice there. Film Critic and Pawn Shop. We can start to rebuild our board state. Just get cards on the table.
Film critic actually really important in dealing with the last SDS if Larrea ends up touching it.
Just needs to keep the SMC around so you can install it on the run. The problem is like to get a program down to get to the Archer, like Archer's trash program subroutines are going to resolve. So it's going to be really hard to steal an SDS on R&D if you can send it just through the Archer.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying with the Film Critic, is that Film Critic goes through the steal trigger.
Excuse me, yeah, huge. Very, very big. Now, all the Hunter Seekers are out. We have seen, I think, 1 or 2 Jackson Howards. They weren't used, so there are a couple in the heap. Again, sorry, we can't click on archives. This is a replay. But Larrea is definitely holding on here, but I'm not sure how many cards she can touch. She might be on a situation where she can only access 1 more card, but very, very interestingly, 1 card is all she needs.
Yeah, Friends in High Places reinstalling all of those cards that Jai trashed on the standoff, so not ended up being terrible for his gameplay overall. We'll see how he ends up rebuilding the server.
The border control
on server 1.
We'll see if Rashida just comes back in or whether we want another ice on R&D. Man, the text on Titanium is so relevant. It's really, really funny how I don't even remember that card had a text, because that text did not matter for the most of the time that Titanium was in standard.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I want to mention it because it might happen in the next few weeks. I don't remember exactly all the matchups, but if Jai ends up playing Wren, Wren is playing that Cipher side with Cipher and then Chisel to deal with Ice.
Yeah.
And Titanium is really good at dealing with Chisel in particular. So if that matchup ends up happening, that's a really, really interesting thing that we have to look for.
Yeah, I think you just like crew Cipher is my guess, but
yeah.
Oh, Larrea throwing it at the towel in there. Unfortunately, no more breakers, holding on for a long time, getting that massive deep dive turn, only finding 6 points, and Jai barely staying afloat as much as things were looking pretty tense there. Well played to both players. Really exciting game.
That makes sense. A really, really good game. Jai and ending up resisting through the runner pressure and completely locked him out.
All right, we're going to flip the sides again. Jai is the only person who stayed on Andromeda. Mind you, I think we've seen Jai play Andromeda in any format where Jai is allowed to play Eternal. If Andy's an option, Andy gets played. So Andromeda, we're looking at good old 9 hand size. And mind you, the Andromeda CI matchup is a matchup that I think a lot of people have seen, because it was a very relevant matchup back in the day where these were 2 standard identities. You start with some good pressure, some good options. Looking at that hand, I think that's quite a nice hand. The early Amakua, the Count Siphons, you get a Blue Moose setup. This seems pretty good. I think this is just good stuff, Andy. It's nothing in particular, is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'm looking at. The Choreographer really good at installing one of those 2 kind of expensive resources that are definitely going to push Jai's game plan ahead. The Account Siphon threaten the CI's credit pool as well as the hand size. So really good starting hand, I think, for Jai. On the other side of the table, though, we see CI, cerebral imaging. Your maximum hand size is the same as is equal to your credit pool. But most importantly, I want to highlight this right away. Larrea is playing a 54 CI card, CI deck.
If I'm not mistaken, too, Larrea was not one of the CI players in phase 1. I think that was just Toron and Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, which means that she has definitely found something that speaks to her or she thinks is good into this meta. So 54 card CI, what do you imagine we could see here? There's a lot of different CIs. I think there's even CI combo decks we've never seen before that we could see for the first time.
Yeah, CI has a lot of different things that it can do. The bigger CIs ends up using wilder combos, I think. So we'll see if Larrea has very different plans. If I were to play this game as a runner, I would be worried about like a lot of different things. 54 is definitely something I'm not particularly familiar with.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this is. So really quickly, we've seen like score to 7 CIs. We've seen flatline CIs. There's joking in chat about like Museum of History asset CI. And I don't know if we're going to see that exactly, but that's sometimes where 54 ends up. But this could largely be anything. But one thing for sure, we're in for some good Netrunner. Let's dive in.
Absolutely.
I'd be so surprised here if Jai doesn't want that hand, but it looks like, unfortunately, Larrea, she's taking the mulligan there. So she sees another 5 cards. A really big card that came out recently in the standard format is your Digital Life. And it's just such a big card for CI. I think there's a whole couple big cards for CI in the Liberation cycle, whether it's a Corporate Hospitality or your Digital Life. I don't think we've seen a lot of people play with the mandates. I think that is something we just haven't seen in standard, but I'm imagining you could do something cool with the mandate in Eternal.
Yeah, that's definitely like pretty good. I think CI usually prefers to play all its economic operations between violet
Yeah.
level clearance and ultraviolet level clearance at times, and just kind of find the combo piece and then play out from there. Given you don't have to discard the cards at the end of your turn because you have such a big hand size. So this may be a difference between what we see in standard, what we see in eternal, and why people generally gravitate towards something different than the mandates.
Violet level clearance is the open. She's on 9 credits, 8 cards in hand, and an ice on HQ. And you definitely need to ice HQ. You're expecting those account siphons for sure. We'll see if Jai just goes for the face check there. With all these cards in hand, we don't have any crowdfunding, so we're going to be discarding cards. We do have Career Fair into either Earthrise Hotel or Blue Moose, so that's pretty good. It means you'll get 2 cards after one, so this run can happen. After a mulligan, we'll see what this is. It's a Gatekeeper. So some of the lists are just on things like Mother Goddess and untyped ice that are hard to break, but it looks like we're on Honest. I imagine we'll see Gatekeepers and Drafters and stuff like that. Maybe a Drafter.
Yeah, Drafter, Architect, depending on what you're doing. When we see, oh my god,
that's
we
big.
see 2 Vanity Project getting shuffled.
That's an 8-point Vanity. We did see a bit of Toron also playing a Vanity Project CI. Again, sometimes this is something you can score out, but sometimes this is just the most amount of points you can put on a single card in your deck to make it just harder. This deck is going to be on 22 points, if I'm not mistaken. So when, you know, maybe 16 of those points are on 3 cards, or sorry, 12 of those points are on 3 cards, it's kind of hard for the runner to touch enough things.
Yeah, I did not have on my bingo card 2-player play Vanity Project on phase 2, but that's definitely something interesting to see.
Now, Blue Moose is coming down. That is going to give functionally 2 credits a turn. And here with Amakua, let alone into Chesva, but just Amakua straight into Account Siphon, that is going to be a massive swing. Larrea's on 6 credits. That's a 15 credit swing. The question is whether Jai feels comfortable to float the tags or not. That can be a problem to some CI decks. We don't have enough of a read whether the tags will be relevant in this matchup. Corporate Hospitality.
Yeah,
Gonna grab Violet level clearance. Might just play that, and we're up on 15 cards in hand, but only 11 credits. So Larrea is gonna have to shed 4 of her least favorite options in hand.
Yeah, with these 2 really good resources installed, it makes sense for Jai to maybe kind of try and avoid keeping the tags for long.
Yeah.
But if Larrea ends up going very low on credits, then that's a choice that Jai can take. Right now, Gatekeeper, though, looking like a bit of a liability as it doesn't deal extremely well with the Omakua that Jai is sitting on.
Yeah, very rewarded for that first turn face check. Putting 8 points back into R&D is definitely something. But here, having a 0 strength ice on HQ with an Omakua is not going to be fantastic. So the question is, does Jai get greedy and float tags? Or, as you said, protecting those resources isn't powerful, but also Larrea probably can't afford to trash them. There, we're going to start.
About to see, I guess.
Okay, getting the Chesva down as well. Again, it will pay for itself, but Count Siphon, if you're not familiar, just a massive card. It's a 15 credit swing. And of course, not only are those credits that Larrea doesn't have to do cool combo stuff with, but that just means 5 fewer hands size, which really matters when you're holding 11 and have to discard down to 6. She has your digital life. She often will keep that to bounce back in. But it looks like we're just double siphoning. She's down on 1. So credit your digital life is the only non-disastrous recovery here.
Yeah, Larrea really needs a YDL here, and using the Spin Doctor to draw even more, looking for the 1 card that saves her hand. Otherwise, she's going down on like 1 or maybe 2 cards, depending on how much of those remaining clicks she ends up using for credits.
Does she have it? Click for credit. She has to discard down to 2 hand size. And what we're assuming is 2 Spin Doctors on the table is going to recur some options here. But CI, that text being a downside is obviously not a place you want to be. So massive 10 card discard here. Jai still has an open HQ. The question is, you're assuming there's agendas and archives. It's really easy to run that and get 2 Spin Doctors out of the game for a single click. Oh no, this is rough.
Very rough, yeah. This is not where you want to be on CI, having 2 hand sides. You want that text to be a boon, not a curse.
Yeah.
And this is definitely where Larrea is sitting right now, unfortunately.
We'll check archives here. We can't just get an Amaku counter for our troubles. Now the question is, what cards does she keep in HQ? Is it agendas? I imagine it's more important combo pieces. So running even for free with Chesva might not line up. There is a Cyberdex Fire Suite.
See any agendas.
So
interesting.
We get to see big deal Hayley on Alpha Test. This is a really Toron coded list. I wonder if they're on the same list here, but we get to see some of the same overlapping cards.
It does looks really close to what Toron was playing. I don't remember if Toron was on 54 or a
No.
regular 49. However, with Vanity Project and stuff, the agenda density is definitely low, so all this discard doesn't end up impacting Larrea too much.
Now, only one spin was popped there. I totally missed what cards were shuffled back, but the second spin turned out to be the card on the table wasn't used, which means there's a chance that Larrea kept an agenda in hand, or the only two agendas we've seen all game were the two vanities. So two now unknown cards in HQ. Jai can check that for free with the Amakua for a click. We have the Hannah as well to check remote servers or clear the tags if we want to, but I feel like Jai might just be floating tags here. We're going to go Rebirth. I think I've seen too many people go for 419. I love that we're seeing something else here with a Steve Cambridge with 2 account siphons in the bin. Why the heck not?
Yeah, Steve makes a lot of sense, and threatening a second account siphon is definitely a place Larrea does not want to be. Unfortunately, that does kind of impact how Blue Moose does, because you kind of have to remove more cards.
Yeah, that's true. Just draw more or something, I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, 4 tags in. If Larrea is on tag punishment, she does have a really clean out here. Upgrade on HQ. Crazy Grid could line up well with all of the attacks we're expecting. And now exactly with 2 cards in the heap that both have the same name, we're running HQ for free and for no clicks with the alarm clock. So we're not going to spend the double click here. We're just going to pay 2 credits from our Chesvas. And then we'll see if Larrea feels like she has to res here to deny the Steve Cambridge ability. It is a crazy.
Looks like she does.
She's
yeah,
on 1 credit.
Which is unfortunate.
Losing a Violet, and that shouldn't be a big trash for Jai. Now, Steve Cambridge's ability can still fire this turn, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's only the first time, unfortunately. So I think that single alarm clock run kind of eats the Steve triggers.
But is it not considered successful? So it doesn't. Isn't Steve the first success, and that's not a success?
That might be correct. I don't know actually.
Yeah, my preview card's too small.
Standard interaction.
Yeah, because it's not a successful run, but I'm not sure. That means I don't think it's a first successful run, so Steve doesn't fire. We'll figure out. Larrea just unfortunately clicking for credits there. We have an account siphon in hand. Not using the free run off the alarm clock for accesses, just saying I'm going to drop you to 0 hand size next turn. Now Larrea can always
back another account siphon for doing that is a really tough spot for someone who wants to have at least 15 to 20 credits probably to pull off one of those score a Vanity Project in 1 turn combo.
And we have Desperate on the table, an Employee Strike in hand, which is not worth much here, but every run now we're making credits, hopefully getting an Amakua counter as well. Arc Lockdown, interesting. So definitely a way to deal with some of those account siphons recurring, as much as we're expecting 1 more to come through.
Yeah, 1 more at most. Probably card that deals better with Anarchs and their bin breaker setups. Not something that might be terribly irrelevant in this matchup in particular.
Now we're 6 tags in. We haven't seen a lot of influence for what it's worth. I think if we check the archives there, I'm not sure there's a lot of influence. So now we're running this clicklessly, gaining a credit, gaining an access. If Larrea has an agenda, does she keep or does she throw it out? Again, Jai can win in as few as 2 accesses, and we did see very early that there was 8 points of agendas shuffled back into R&D on turn 1 or turn 2.
Yeah. Jai doesn't appear to have a lot of multi-access, and Criminal in general doesn't have access to great multi-access tools. So we'll see what he ends up choosing. And we see a Vanity Project steal.
So we're already on game point, technically. Any 3-pointer, any 4-pointer will get Jai to 7. So again, this is a 54 card deck with 22 points. So we're assuming there's at least 6+ agendas in the deck. So still pretty hard to find enough points. And as you said, the multi-access might not be strong. It's more about like just kind of the brute force, the amount of accesses Jai can get off. And Jai's drawing here, not going for the singles, trying to look for something particular in the deck.
Yeah, also looking at those 2 employee strikes are currently not particularly good. The blue moves that probably Jai wants to discard. So there's a few cards in hand that Jai doesn't care about keeping for long. Maybe overdrawing to get cards in the bin so that blue moves can fire later on.
Yeah, the funny thing is when you play employee strike and the corporation gets stronger.
Yeah.
Oh,
and there we have it.
There's the 8 points that went back. That was very, very rough game for the corporation there. Unfortunate. But Jai just had that starting hand. That's why you play Andromeda. You have all those options there, opening with 2 account siphons, the breaker, the blue moose, just the worst possible when it ends up to be a 0 strength ice on HQ. We'll play to both players. That is, sometimes it do just be like that.
the amazing power of Andromeda kind of finding you the greatest opening hands that possibly be. I'm interested to see if those two CI decks end up, how they end up performing in the next few weeks, because they look similar, Larreas and Torons, and I really want to see if they perform well in the next few weeks.
I have no doubt we're going to see more Vanity Project do something cool. We heard from Toron chat. I'm cooking. Just you wait for next week. I have no doubt
Nice.
we'll see the same from both players. All right. This is our last pairing of the week. We have our final Cabanessa Wu, and off 1515 is now playing Nearth Hub. 1515 was playing something else last week. Was it? What was the ID last week? This is new NEH, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So F1515 was playing IG last week,
Right.
and I think he was the only one playing Liza. Switching up completely here, he's playing NEH, and you'll see on the other side, I think he's playing another version of Cabanessa Wu. So 4 different factions for the 2 phases, and we'll see if he keeps switching on. He's not the only one that's completely changed all of his deck, but definitely like showing some variety in his play.
If I'm not mistaken, off 1515 also just got to the finals of the EMEA districts, also playing NEH, if I'm not mistaken, just yesterday, which is pretty funny. So no matter what format.
Even more importantly, he was playing against Augustus Caesar in that final.
Yes.
So we see a rematch, I guess, in the past.
Yeah, really, really cool. So let's talk about this. Cabanessa Wu, again, we're looking at 106 cards, if I'm not mistaken. So we're assuming it's a world tree. And if we look at the hand, we can already see some of the important influence choices. We see a Reaver there, which is, again, it's a 4 influence card, if I'm not mistaken. So this is one of the Apex cards that says the first time a turn you trash a card, draw a card. And that obviously works really well with things like world tree and all the other cool stuff you want to do. We have a Rigging Up, which, you know, technically was a very important card for a minute in the Eternal format, as I have no doubt you know Warlock. And then we also
absolutely.
we have a Clot, which I don't know if it's going to matter so much in this matchup. What do you expect from yeah?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what do you expect from NEH? Astro is still a 1 of in this format. Are we just going horizontal and doing some sort of tag prison, or are we playing old school fast advance here?
So Astro is still a 1-off in this format, but I'm expecting some kind of fast advance in a different situation.
Cool.
What NEH usually tells me when I'm playing Eternal is that screaming butcher shop. So kind of finding ways to kill the runner through some tag and bag combos, usually revolving around breaking news, which is why I'm looking at Clot and being like, this is not probably useless in the matchup. So finding ways to score a breaking news, maybe from hand very quickly, or maybe setting it down on the table and using it to find to tag the runner twice and then boom them, or play double Scorched Earth, some kind of kill operation combo.
Yeah, breaking news
usually what NEH does.
Breaking News is just an absolutely busted card. There's no way around it. It's a 2/1. It has great text. The tags really matter. We haven't seen a lot of it so far in the Eternal Super League, so I'm excited to see it because it is, for a lot of people, what they think of when they think of Eternal. Now, on the runner side, we have a couple tech cards that can deal with it. I'd be surprised to see Aaron Baron, but I think we've been seeing New Angeles City Halls a fair bit as a way to like interact favorably with tags, and we'll see how quickly Augustus can determine what sort of matchup it is and prioritize getting the right cards on the table. Do you expect to see something like an Amani Sanai to bounce the World Tree? That's sometimes a big issue for these sort of World Tree decks in Standard.
I wasn't thinking about it, and it's not particularly common, but if you end up playing a few additional agendas and maybe kind of set up an interesting board where you're a Richard and runner, that definitely makes sense. The other common fork that this kind of deck play is using mid-season replacement to bait the runner in a situation where they either let you score the agenda and then kill you through that, or let you force the runner to steal the agenda and then flood them with tags thanks to that powerful traceability.
Yeah, it's trace 6, and then the difference in the trace is how many tags the runner gets. Now, I imagine we might see a 1-of copy of Misdirection in the deck, so if Augustus has the time, can remove a lot of tags for like 2 clicks, which can be relevant, but it comes down to what are the utility options, what are the tricks in the toolbox, and I'm excited to see what those tricks look like. We have 106 of them, so probably there's something there.
Yeah, additionally worth mentioning is that compared to hard-hitting news and Opera research, mid-season replacement is not a terminal operation. No. So while Misdirection usually gets away with removing a lot of tags with very few clicks, mid-season can get into a very nasty kill combo right away, even through that misdirection. So we'll see if that ends up happening this game.
Awesome. Let's dive in. I'm excited to see this for sure. We're going to see here whether off 15 they go for the mulligan first. I'm assuming Augustus doesn't keep this hand. This doesn't scream fantastic to me. Like, I don't know if you need to open with a scavenge or a rejig to get that Cabanessa or just one econ card, but we'll see.
I'll be honest, I don't have a very good read on what's a good hand in a World 3 Woo deck. And I'll be honest, and I think like most hands are fine-ish, given that Cabanessa kind of finds all the money and the World 3 pretty quickly without having to use tools from hand.
Maybe Reaver is okay. Maybe that's just good enough that you don't want to grab it, that you're okay having a 4 influence card. Laguna Velasco is also a very, very explosive card, like a lot of draw, not explosive, but great over time, but very, very expensive in the early game. So I'm assuming you want to grab that with World Tree for only 2 credits. Oh, actually, no.
Additionally, in the groove goes, given you expect to install 3 to 4 cards on the first turn, it's probably a really good play to start off.
Excuse me, did I do this? I think I did something. 1 second. I hit a button and now we're here. Give me 1 second to fix this. Okay.
Yep.
We're back. All right. Looks like off 15 went for the mulligan. And we're off. Excuse me. I tried to search in the groove and it sent me back to the homepage.
Oh no.
All right. Off 15 is taking the mulligan. Looks like Augie's going to keep here. Near Earth Hub, if you're not familiar, also still around in the standard format for about another month and a half. 17 influence, that's a nice start. And the first time at turn you build a new remote server, you get to draw a card. Even when this thing came out, people said, well, that's pretty powerful, isn't it? And it is. It has been very, very powerful in almost any format it's playable in for a long time.
Yeah. I remember people justifying the 17 influence for saying, well, but you have to draw a card, it's mandatory. And then it turns out you're not particularly set to do that.
Yeah. We're going to start here again, build a new remote server, draw a card. There's a lot of these like high trash cost, cheap cards that back in NEH asset spam you could expect, whether it's rezzed early, turtlebacks to get free credits to draw cards, whether we're going to see things like Jeeves or wage workers to get the click compression. Otherwise, it can't just be like score out 2 15 minutes and do a 24/7 news cycle and end the game. Changing our back. Ooh. We wanted a little cat to join us here on a rumor mill. Oh, I think you have to go for a hard refresh there if you want to change the background.
Yeah, unfortunately. I scolded Augustus about not having the correct background between the phase 1 and phase 2, so it looks like he's fixing it.
Is that required? That's required ESL branding, I take it, huh?
I mean, we ask all the players to use rumor mill in this for these matches just to have everything the same between games. I noticed he was the only one who was still using the default route.
Got him. All right, we opened up there with a Sherazada. We're going to get on top of that or Coalescence, and we should have no problem making a successful run here. So Sherazada is a daemon that just gives you a credit functionally when you install a card on top of it. You can see the whole list there if you want to pause. And we saw some interesting inclusions like Da Vinci as a fun trick. We have some breakers for sure. It looks like we're not getting a World Tree. Is World Tree in here? There's no World Tree in the deck.
Oh, wow. I think Augustus doesn't have enough money to install it, so it doesn't show.
Okay.
But I would be shocked to think that it's not in the list.
Okay, we're just setting up here. We're going to get a hyperdriver. Mind you, you can crack that next turn. That will just give you a whole bunch of clicks. There has to be a World Tree in this list, right? Anything else would be ridiculous, but Sensi's Actor Union across the table. Again, one of the most important assets to trash. Just gives so much tempo to the corporation. Allows them to get agendas out of their hand. They draw plus 700 cards. This card definitely needs to be trashed sooner than later, unless you're really just controlling the board and saying, hey, burn your agendas. I'm still just controlling the game. Now we got a Jeeves.
Yeah, Jeeves.
I don't know if that suggests combo or suggests we just got a lot of HB cards so we can get something going for free, but Jeeves is kind of like a Wage Workers. The differences are pretty subtle, but pretty important. And speaking about HB cards in the remote server, we have one of the most powerful, I think, 3-point cards, Estelle Moon, which now means that you can crack Estelle Moon to draw instantly a bunch of cards and a bunch of credits, and you have to deal with her sooner than later. Otherwise, that's just too much explosive forward tempo.
Yeah. We'll see if Augustus ends up doing what a lot of Eternal players do, which is kind of ask for an action right at the start of your turn when there's a Estelle Moon installed, just to bait the runner into using it, kind of threatening to use a rumor mill, but I don't think the World Reboot can get around with that shenanigans.
We're going to go again, use Cabanessa. We're just thinning the deck, using the stack as if it was our deck. I still don't see a World Tree. No, it's at the top. It's at the top. It's not alphabetical.
Okay,
I don't know why. Yeah. So in the groove is firing this turn. Whenever we install a card, or we can either get a card or gain a credit. We have a labor rights for some recursion as well.
Importantly, it doesn't trigger on 0-cost cards, so you don't
Yes.
get to play a lot of 0-costers. You have to actually install something that costs credits to get stuff back. And if you're not doing that by cheating with Devas, it's definitely going to be a little less powerful. But I'm sure Augustus is going to generate a lot of value from this in the groove into World 3.
Speaking of a lot of value, look at this board state. We're 1 click in on turn 2. Admittedly, there's been a hyperdriver, so we have a couple more clicks than it might look like. But this board state, Augustus is just over here playing Dominion, just trying to figure out the install and the buy tree. So we're going to keep going deeper. Muse into Scheherazade to gain a credit to search the deck to install a thing. We can install the same coalescences. I don't know if we're going to interact on the table here, whether we're just going to build a weird... Okay. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm assuming, there we go. I'm assuming Augustus is going to run at least once to get these World 3 triggers going, and he runs with 1 click going on the Estelle Moon, forcing the Estelle Moon to get to pop and do something, and then checking something else, installing a few more cards.
This is double World Tree. So now we can go still search for a card. It looks like we're going to just keep nesting those daemons. There's no downside to that. Nothing bad can happen. Let's see if we get something that trashes cards like a Parisha, or we're just going to continue building with a hyperdriver for the following turn.
Yeah.
So
those 2 installs ended up making 2 credits from the Intergroove and then installing for free because the hyperdriver goes on the deck. You're getting 1 credit back.
Okay, so Spin Doctor to Self-Growth Program, right? Like, that's all we need here. The game's over. Or not Spin Doctor, sorry, Sea Source or Public Trail. That's all we need.
That would be disastrous, yes.
It's so simple.
A second copy of a Stealth Moon and a Turtleback. So looks like OF 1515 setting up for a lot of money, a lot of card draw. Currently on 10 cards in hand.
Yeah. Big card draw coming in. Again, Estelle Moon does get cracked halfway through that turn. And now with the second Estelle Moon, the question is how many of these cards can Augie touch? I imagine a fair few of them. We saw cards like Da Vinci in the deck. I don't know if that's a card you get down so you can get some tempo from running the table and then you can cheat down an expensive card. I'd be surprised. But we haven't seen a real good, like, okay, this is a ridiculous sentence because there's 2 World Trees, but that's all that's firing when you touch cards. That's obviously probably enough, but we'll see what else there is for reasons to touch.
We're about to witness another 7-click turn from the runner side, going with 2 World Trees and probably installing that Reaver to get even more value out of that. So Augie in for some very explosive turns. But I want to say, OF15, we've seen a lot of his influence, or like some of his influence, and it looks like a very different plan from what I was expecting. Like a lot of value, a lot of assets. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm not sure, right? Like, we're assuming that we're not playing influence for Jeeves. So we're playing a bunch of HB cards. My guess is team sponsorship, and we're just like tempoing agendas.
That could be the case, yes. So maybe installing a Sense and City Grid, scoring out that one of script, and then they could train out some other agendas with different tools.
Can you do Breaker Bay Grid combo in this format? I assume you can. Like,
yes, you can. That would actually be something. It's usually seen out of Sports Metal.
Yeah.
Because all of those triggers, but NBN has the highest amount of 2-1s, which may be something that you end up using.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar, there's a card called Calibration Testing, and then you can play things like Arella, and basically of any agenda score, you can just keep adding cards to the remote server and just continually scoring more and more agendas on the same turn. It can be pretty wild. But we know we do have a clot, as much as we're assuming there's Cyberdex Fire Suites, at least on the corporation side, to purge at instant speed. All right, we have an Estelle we have to deal with. We're digging deeper there with Cabanessa to go get something from the deck. It's a Coalescence. I'm assuming we might just get a Muse into a Coalescence. There you go.
Yeah, get more fuel for the World Tree. So we're gonna probably trash both of those, installing the Reaver to get those the draws from that.
So Estelle Moon, we will not make a successful run here. So we still have to make a run. Luckily, we have 4 clicks left here. And Reaver, again, 4/4 influence says the first time a turn, a runner card is trashed, I believe. You trash a card, okay? You trash a card. So you can trash a corp card. That's kind of fun. As much as the World Tree will be firing a fair bit sooner than that on most board states. You draw a card.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting World Tree to trigger before Augie touches any card, obviously, because that's how the card works. And we'll see the value that double World Tree into Reaver can generate in a single successful run trigger.
Now, how do you contest Server 9, right? Like, Cabanessa can pull any breaker out of the deck. So I'm not sure what you feel safe about. We'll see if we have to respect things like Amani Sanai again, because one Amani Sanai is, I wouldn't say you lose the game, but it's pretty bad for the runner. If you bounce or trash the Scheherazade, everything goes down on top of it.
Yeah. That's pretty bad. And I think Augustus is probably playing some kind of Mayfly. Yeah, we see Mayfly in the list. We see Yogg in the list of programs you can install.
Yeah, we do see
He's currently
Angolo,
struggling with MU.
Egret.
Yeah. MU is currently like the bigger problem that Augustus has to fight through, and the deck deer is definitely here to help that.
So we found a Sensei. We haven't grabbed anything like a Parisha. We haven't grabbed anything like a Rizeki. So our economy is entirely just World Tree pushing forward, and then the Daemons doing cool Daemon forward credit stuff with Scheherazade. But if we're looking here, there's actually no Rizekis in the list. Like, how do you make money infinitely?
Yeah, good question. I think maybe you probably don't. You probably shuffle back the coalescences.
Yeah.
Remember, like I think Augustus started with 100 and something card in his stack, and
yeah, I know. Already at 80.
Turn 3.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So many have gone already.
So we're trimming the board down there, getting rid of the wage workers, or sorry, the Jeeves. So you can't score at a 3-2 or a 4-2 or 3-2 and push your next card. We have a stone ship on the table. We're going to RFG. Oh, because of Cabanessa. So that Parisha does get RFG. That's a very valuable card in the matchup. We'll see how much that matters because it's not cycling back. We see how some of the lists run multiple Parishas, but a Rashida on off 15-15's turn, they have 12 cards in hand here. That's a lot of cards.
What's the thing? Yeah, he's drawing a lot of his deck. He's down to 24 cards in R&D, and he's gearing up to something that looks like a combo of some kind, because that's definitely like a lot more cards than the regular deck would probably try and draw.
Yeah, this seems like exactly either a combo. I don't know if it's as simple as like Public Trail Self-Growth Program or Public Trail Retribution and just say, that's bad for you, or whether there is something more like obviously lethal. But yet when you already have 8 cards in hand, firing Rashida means you definitely need something.
Yeah.
Now, notably,
wonder if
Nearth Hub draws a bit. We've drawn a lot of cards. We have a spin knocker to the table and 2 face downs in archives, but there has to be agendas in HQ.
Well, after installing 2 cards, then Rezzing and Arella. So
it is
looks
combo.
Like Skorpios kind.
Sansan Arella combo here. So we'll see if we can score out here. We can only score out a 2-1. Arella.
We can score 2-1s without any additional clicks from now on.
Yes.
Because they go on the server with 1 advancement from Arella and gets discounted by the Sansan. And there's a breaking news giving 2 tags to runner, which means it opens up, there you go, exactly, the freedom of information. It's now a 2-1 because of the 2 tags.
Wait, do we win?
It looks likely.
Do we win? Do we have another
points.
15-pointer? A 1-pointer? Is there another? Good game?
There we go. Wow.
Good game? Oh my god. Yeah, it's
7 points in a single turn, or rather in a single paid ability window. So unless Augustus reacts to it beforehand by installing that clock that he has in hand, he doesn't even have a window to stop any of the additional points that get scored through the Arella. And I think the breaking news was already on the board, so that doesn't get stopped by the clock. So wow.
Yeah, so that would have been fast. I didn't even have the overlay going at the top. So breaking news is scored out first, which gives the runners 2 tags, which means the freedom information that now gets installed in the remote server with a single advancement from Arella is now a 2-1. So you can score that out for free with Sansan, put the next freedom, score the next 15 minutes, and then score out the last 1-pointer. That was 7 points in a single turn. 2 of the cards had to be pre-installed. Or sorry, only 1 of the cards was pre-installed? It was just a 15 minutes.
Only 1.
Breaking news was on the table.
I think he ended up going install, and then advance the 15 minutes, res everything, and then go up from there.
Holy crap. So there was a claw. Yeah, we saw a claw, but unfortunately, I don't think Augustus saw that coming at the speed that it showed up. But like, if you do have a cloth there, whether there's a purge window or whether you have to hold a turn or find a Cyberdex Fire Suite, that is, that was incredibly explosive. Most of those agendas were scored out for entirely free.
Yeah, people saying any age 7, which is not something you expected to see, I think, or I expected to see it at least, but definitely an interesting way to close out the game there.
Awesome. Now we're going to flip the table to our last game of this Sunday. 15-15. Also, we're assuming on a World Tree, Cabanessa Wu. This is the smallest one we've seen so far that's playing World Tree. I think we're on 94 cards, so kind of trim some cards out somehow. And Augie on the other side of the table, 49 card op. I'm assuming it's combo op, so mutually assured destruction into all that sort of great stuff. I don't I'm not like, for as good and straightforward as combo op is, I don't have that much experience into it or against it. What should Cabanessa Wu be doing? Like, do you have to deal with the board? Do you need pressure centrals? You have to trash anything that can produce a Jeeves, right?
Yeah, so Ob has a lot of different points where you can try and attack to slow it down. The usual thing is that you don't want them to have 3 resable cards, one of which being a Jeeves on their turn. So trashing the Jeeves is definitely an option, but you have to be wary about all the 3-cost cards that can be trashed, like a Cyberdex Virus Suite that goes in and finds the Jeeves at instant speed at very, very quickly, very easily for Ob. So you can try and slow the corp down by trashing a lot of their assets and making sure they don't have enough cards to install. That's assuming you don't have enough tech to survive the kill. And I'm assuming Cabanessa is probably going to go for for some kind of tech rather than fighting the economic and board fight, and just put down a New Angel City Hall and kind of slow down the corp as they kind of find their way out of there. It's important to note also that Ob usually loves to run Amalia that costs exactly 1, so it comes out of Jeeves when you trash it for Mad. So it's easily installed through the Ob ability, and that blanks 1 piece of tech in the resource slot. That's usually a great way for the corp to get through all the powerful tech cards that runners might be playing.
Yeah, interesting. It's, again, another matchup where the board state can go from it looks okay to immediately you're flatlined in a turn or so. So you have to be careful. Again, both these players are familiar with the format, so they're going to know exactly what threats are presented on the table. Off 15-15's hand, we get to see it. Not a bad hand at all. We do get to see that. That's the Temujin contract, one of the most powerful criminal cards ever printed. Is this one 3 points as well?
It is, yes.
Ooh, okay. So this is already eating into that points budget, but this is another great card that works well with what we're assuming is World Tree, because either it comes cheaply and on its last 4 credits, it's another card you can get rid of. As much as we've been mostly seeing in those couple of games, only World Tree trading programs for programs, which with Coalescence in the early game makes sense. We might just see some resources here. We see a lot of resources in this hand.
Yeah, so Temujin program, we haven't seen Temujin contract in the other 2 World Tree lists right away at least, but it definitely was in Toron's list. It's definitely like there's 2 big spenders in that list when it comes to points, and that's 3 points for Hyperdriver and 3 points for Temujin contracts. And whether the other 2 players who are piloting World Tree Woo decided to change the point list wise, looks like F1515 going on a smaller deck that plays those, at least the points from Temujin, and finds the money that the deck needs to kind of explode through that.
What do you expect the last point is? Is it a current, or do you just not count on currents when your deck is 94 cards?
I don't think you can count on currents when your deck is I don't think you can count on pointed currents when your deck is 95 to 100 to 210 cards, and you cannot tutor for events. The last point is usually a film critic, which is easily tutorable and deals with a lot of nasty agendas in the format.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I think we can dive in.
There, let's go.
All right, so it looks like Augie going there for the mulligan. Again, only 49 cards here with Cabanessa. Again, any hand is just about a good hand in most places. And this hand definitely has some explosive economy. Classically, Temujin, one of the starts that you would see is you could just Temujin contract when it was in standard and just put it on archives and run 3 times. And that turn you got 12 credits, and you still have a server that you can run for 4, and then the corporation could deal with it. I don't think that's what we're going to see here. If this is a World Tree deck, we're probably going to, grab some coalescences with Cabanessa's ability and go from there. But it's definitely a very powerful economic card if there's a central server. We're going to start with Cyberdex, go straight for It's an Estelle Moon, and we're just going to start getting cards on the table. Again, any 3-coster you can trash at instant speed just means you have more Estelles, and with a bigger card pool, advanced assembly lines, that's another card that just means free, I guess, Rashida or Spin Doctor or any of great stuff like that.
Yeah, very classic line here. I think Augustus realized he can't use Ob twice in the same turn, so he's probably going to undo click and wait for OF1515 to start a turn and find an avenue there. We'll see if OF ends up playing the Temujin, just kind of consume a little bit and then keep the resource later for World Tree trigger, or if he ends up assembling the World Tree engine right away and then uses the Temujin later on.
So 2 important cards on the table. One of them you have to deal with sooner than later. The Rashida will just get more cards to fuel Estelle, but on 4 credits, are we assuming that the corporation's just playing the cheapest dice possible, like the vanilla Quandary suite, or can you actually face check and force a border control for 4?
I think you're pretty safe checking into most of these eyes. I don't expect Wayland to play very nasty face check. The worst thing would probably be a Mausolus, but that would bankrupt Augustus really quickly. And after firing the Estelle, the board kind of looks like fairly handable, like something that OF fitting can handle rather well. So I would expect to face check something if you have the clicks, because the other thing is that turn 1 World Review, you really want to get set up. You really want your World Tree to come down and start kind of running things and generating value. So maybe you don't have the time to actually check the eyes and force the corp to make decisions.
Off 15, thinking it through here, whether you just grab Coalescence or not. But again, you can just send the face check. That is such a ridiculous start for Op. 2 ice, 2 important cards on the table. Still in 4 credits plus Estelle. But looks like we're going to start with the Deg Deer here. Go and grab the Coalescence. Again, Deg Deer does just make things cheaper, so this Coalescence becomes a better play. You install it for 1 cheaper with Cabanessa. I think the Deg Deer also makes it 1 cheaper, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So this is a nice click for 4 credits, find the Coalescence, and then probably use it later on for a World Tree to find something else.
So the question here is whether you just grab the World Tree. Probably can't. So you can grab SMC into World Tree. You need 8 credits for that. If you put it on the Deg Deer with the SMC with Cabanessa, and then you can run a central server. That means you're not going to contest these remotes. But we'll see what the tension is between off 15 dealing with his board state and setting up that massive Shaper rig.
Unfortunately, the 1 credit that Deg Deer saved on the Coalescence does not equate the 2 credits that it costs to put down. And so the usual 1-2 combo of putting down a Coalescence, making 3 credits, and then using the 8 credits you have to find the World Tree is not exactly mathing out for F15 in this situation, where he ends up 1 credit short for the World Tree and realizes exactly that it doesn't have the click to install it and the click to run to sacrifice the Coalescence without that 1 additional credit.
So what's the big breakpoint here? With Cabanessa, do you grab SMC into World Tree for 8? I take it?
Yeah, okay. But unfortunately OF is on 7,
yeah.
so it doesn't. That's not enough. And if OF doesn't have the clicks for credit, then he doesn't have enough clicks to run and sacrifice and then crash the Coalescence to find something else.
So here you can credit and run centrals, right? And you'll have 1 World Tree fire. Like it should be good to draw the Deg, but it's off by 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Deg Deer and both Cabanessa reduce the cost by 1. So that's a free Coalescence, which is +4. If I'm not mistaken, right? Am I doing the math wrong?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. So we're on 7, which is just slightly short because we go down 2 + 4. Wait, no, this doesn't add up. I'm doing the math wrong, I think.
So Deg Deer costs 2, so OF went down 3, and then the Coalescence brought up to 7.
What
happens when you Coalescence with Cabanessa is that you go up to 8 on a single click.
Yeah, it's
and then now the single credit is definitely not mathing out for OF. It needs 1 more. Would have need 1 more credit. I think he's doing something different here, and we'll probably end up losing the Coalescence to the RFG.
Oh, right, because Cabanessa is a click there. So yes, you can't run click for credit. So this SMC is going to do something really weird here. If you don't use it, it gets removed from the game at the end of the turn with Cabanessa's text. So that might be a bit preemptive, but it looks like we're going to grab something else here. So if we grab a Coalescence, we can't run. So I guess we're just going to go ahead and use the SMC, trashing the first one, and just go get the World Tree. Or we're just setting up.
Sniper driver.
That makes sense.
Interesting. I'm assuming OF wants to use that Coalescence before he trashes it on the hyperdriver. He has the chance, and I think the player will figure it out.
Yeah, Deg Deer can only host a single program, excuse me. It's not like Leprechaun, which can host 2. So we're going to use those credits. So that did use the Coalescence. Like those are still just like hedge fund buttons, but we just set this thing up and we're ready to go next turn. So not massively explosive this turn going forward. And again, we see a bunch of players grab World Tree. I would say maybe for the first time, but there's going to be some learning curves for sure. As this is the new hot deck in the currently ESL meta.
Yeah. Right now, Augustus is sitting on a button that's really powerful. It says draw 4 cards, make 8 credits, tutor for any 1 cost installable, and install and res it for free. So a really, really powerful trash ability from Estelle Moon. And without Rumor Mill going around, that's not getting contested anytime soon.
Is there a super potent 1 coster, or do you just grab Mark Yale so you can grab a Rashida at the next start of turn window?
It's usually Markiel or Advanced Assembly Lines, depending on
Right.
what you need and how much influence you have to spend on additional Advanced Assembly Lines. I think the list probably runs at least 1 or 2 1-cost ice. That's hard to deal with for the runner. That's like in res card that stay on the board and very hard to remove by the runner. So that's what something else I would expect. But then again, the Augustus played 3 ice already and something in server 4, which might tells us that the list is something slightly different than what I'm used to.
Yeah. The fact that you can immediately, once this Temujin comes on the table, you can pop a Stell Moon to grab Malia is so goofy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that play is going to come up because you can still World Tree it away, but you do deny all these credits. So we'll see if that's a play. Again, you could crack a Stell, draw a bunch of cards, get the 1-coster on the table. Malia blanks the non-virtual because I don't think Temujin's not virtual, is it?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it is. It might be a job, but I don't think it's virtual.
Yeah, that's just a job. So that's a line that you have to worry about. Again, sometimes the Malia is just in hand, but if it's not, looks like here again, we do have a 7-click turn. We are setting up. We're going to use a bit of the card draw. We did draw into a World Tree. Do you reckon there's more World Trees in the deck?
I would be shocked if in 95
Just
cards,
run one?
15 ends up playing a single.
Yeah,
even
you
though
play
it's
multiple World Tree. Multiple World Tree we've seen already. It's really quite good.
Right. Yes. Yes, you're right.
So we'll see if
So we might end up installing it from hand at some point, though.
Oh,
that would make sense.
So I think Off15 is counting on getting the 4 credits from the Temujin to install the World Tree. Wait, no, that's not possible. We're just stealing an Atlas, getting 4 credits. Okay, so no Malia, but just ripping points.
Yeah, it looks like Augustus wants to keep the Stell Moon rolling for a little bit more, given F1515 is not looking to contest it right away.
No.
But that's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points. Off15 just wanted to make runs, and R&D is the easy server. You can also pop a Stell to go get ice, like an ice wall or something like that. But importantly, you have to do it before the run starts. Otherwise, the runner will just be behind the ice. And with an SMC, that doesn't seem like a huge tax here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think ice is the answer here to plug the hole.
Classic op. Yeah, op losing off for R&D is a common thing. We haven't fired op that often, but like going back here, there's still a chance. We've already liberated 8 credits off the Temujin, so it's definitely fine. Finding a Markiel there if you want to trash that for 3, but it looks like it's going to stay on the top, and we'll see if Stell Moon pops off this turn. Slash and burn, these are points.
Yeah, I was about to say this is definitely different ice, the agenda suite than what the usual kill op looks to play. So it's like Augustus is on some kind of different plan. This at least agenda wise
could be like what's it called, Rococo op, which I think is the last Eternal op I've played, which is just like fast events, dedication Rococo. You play Markiels to tutor some of those stuff, and with enough Atlas counters, you can kind of like do it every turn.
Yeah, there could be something.
It's the last time I played Eternal, that's what I was playing, and everyone's saying you're playing the wrong op deck, and like scoring to 7 was pretty difficult in that field. So we'll see if Augustus has another piece of spice in there. But so far, all the cards have overlapped relatively well.
Yeah, Augustus definitely setting up very quickly. 8 cards in hand, 17 credits, a lot of cards installed. Unfortunately, 4 points down is not exactly where you want to be, especially when the runner kind of stumbled at the start, and you probably would have wanted to capitalize on that.
Yeah. So we're not sure whether we fired op on the right turn or not. Sometimes it's a bit hard on JNet. Again, op is first time a turn, but when the runner ends their turn, sometimes it's still their turn unless you hit start turn. Sometimes it's not. For someone who's played a lot on JNet, for me, even it's not entirely clear.
Yeah. There's a lot of windows where you were allowed to use these paid abilities and trigger op in different situations.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough to realize where Jinteki in particular draws the line. We see an Eminent Domain.
Eminent. Just scoring that out, whether we get an ice on R&D to hopefully deal with that incoming. Oh, but it looks like we're just going to push about the remote server. Just wait, we're discarding here 3 cards?
That sounds like a lot, but we have a card in server 5 that looks like some kind of recursion asset, whether it's a Spin Doctor or Jackson Hour, probably the former, given that Stell Moon is 3 points and Ob is already additional points.
Wait, we're playing IQ? Sick. So we did have some big hand sets for a second. That technically does work a bit with the text on a Stell Moon, but that is a code gate with strength equal to hand size. So that will go down. We also did have advanced assembly lines to discard fewer cards here.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
the players are
zero
commenting
cost.
about it. Yeah, exactly. It costs one additional one for
Whoa.
each card you have in HQ, but given that it's zero cost, you got to install it with op for basically free thanks to advanced assembly lines. And now there's a really powerful card on R&D that's really going to be hard to deal with.
Holy crap, that's really, really cool. That came from the assembly lines. That is pretty slick. And then another ice one on
Yeah.
R&D. So Aki didn't actually end up discarding that many cards. I think only one card there at the end of the turn. So we'll see what we can deal with it. Again, I do think that's going to be a bad target for Hush. Hush we've seen in some cards, some decks so far, but otherwise a 5-strength code gate you got for free from your deck doesn't feel bad at all. First World Tree down, second World Tree is going to follow it. Whether we just run HQ here, we've seen so far 5 points, and there's only 27 cards left in R&D, so another point in hand could make some sense here. Advanced assembly lines, if I'm not mistaken, can't install agendas, so it doesn't tell you that there's nothing in hand.
Yeah, that's correct. Additionally, like it looks like a very scoring-oriented op list. So
Yep.
definitely something different than what Jeff is playing.
And so server 5 is probably not a powers that be, probably not a team sponsorship. This overclock on HQ is going to make the world tree a bit cheaper coming in here. We do have a hardware and we do have a resource that we can get rid of. So we'll see what the choices are. Whether we go for a console early, like an astrolabe would be pretty nice. And we see other resource choices here. Whether it's another Temujin, you can mark HQ and start sending it. We have Polop for tech, New Angeles City Hall, and Guru Devinder for tech. Just a Blue Moose as well as 2 credits a turn. Can't feel terrible about that. And Endurance is coming in for 5 credits. It's been a while since we've seen that big boat. I think it was in the first game today, but did not hit the table.
Yeah, it's a great way here to deal with all the eyes without having to install programs. So you get to find more and more value through that world tree using programs you get with Kobaneza, and meanwhile getting all those successful run triggers to charge up the boat and get through eyes with that way.
So that last remote server was a Rashida, just uniced. Now we're going to put 2 cards here in server 4. Now Endurance can, in theory, this turn deal with the Archer. Now the problem is if a border control shows up, you're using a bunch of your counters and you might not be able to run back. But we do have a boat rig, so every turn running with the world tree with Endurance, we have very good incentives to run. We have a 4.
Augustus using all these triggers to install more and more eyes already on 4 eyes on that remote, and I'm assuming Ob will install more and more eyes on that one as well. So maybe we're looking at like a surveyor list.
Could be, yeah. Not a great lineup with Endurance, but it could be for sure. Otherwise, against Endurance, like just getting a bunch of like cheap gear checks is often pretty quite good against the limited counters.
Definitely. Also, really good way of kind of taxing out the Angola, which is usually like the go-to breakers for this kind of list that don't want to install a lot of icebreakers, but just the one that deals with a lot of things cheaply.
We've seen a fair bit of Angola today, as much as it not hit the table, but so far no corporate runner has looked like they have enough money to like get that down comfortably and use it. So corporations are definitely pushing the game forward, just like Augustus is here. Now HQ wide open, a card in their remote server, whether there's another agenda in hand, but we're going to have another big setup turn next turn with the hyperdriver. World Tree is going to trade away this telework. We're going to go get a Temujin, whether we mark HQ. Seems like that's going to be the choice here, and stealing a standoff, just a cheap agenda. Doesn't trigger anything on either side of the table, but the archers do make sense. Hostile is in hand. We're on game point here again. Of course, there's 2-pointers in this list. Giving bad publicity to a world tree list isn't your favorite thing to do, but Augustus is going to score out above the lot. Trashing a Temujin is my guess.
Yeah, interesting one. A really powerful
moose.
effect here. Blue moose. And probably plugging the HQ hole with something. Thanks. Yeah, there we go.
So just a sandstone there on HQ. Now you can break that for 2 boat counters. You'll get 1 counter back on successful run and 4 credits, but leaving that that more temporary card as opposed to the 2 credits every turn button. Now this is the first turn that Augustus isn't actually threatening anything on the board. Just score out and pass. Every other turn, I believe there's been something brewing, whether it's just been a Rashido or unknown card, but this is a turn where not only do you have 7 clicks that you can just set up pressure. And if we see there multi-axis, I think we see Copulation. I don't think we see Conduit. So I'm not sure how we see more cards in this deck.
Yeah, interesting one. Maybe it's something in the resource or a hardware slot, but it might be that just good old control shaper looking to deal with anything the corp puts on the board after a few turns. And Copulation is a good way of finding a few cards in HQ if there are agendas.
Now we're checking archives. 2 cards were discarded after that big Rashida turn, I believe. We're going to grab a Turbine from our deck. We don't have any breakers so far, but the Yogg will be free. Let's see what our Fractor is. And there's the Cleaver. So now we're running HQ for a credit.
Very cheap.
Plus 3 credits, yeah.
In HQ.
So we're just setting up like, you know, that fixed rig breaker that you see, the breaker suite in standard, except not only do we have a boat, we have 2 world trees and a Temujin.
Yeah.
The mark we saw off the top of the deck 3 turns prior, that's going to stay in there, give Augie something to jam in their mode server. And the compilation didn't actually do anything. It just got thrown out. It was just world tree fodder.
Yeah, well, doesn't look like OF needs more multi-access right now. But it'll be interesting to see if he ends up finding enough breakers to get in server 4. Sure, Communista gets you 2 more programs, and that will find you 2 more breakers if necessary, thanks to the world trees. But the server still looks quite annoying to deal with, and even with Temujin, 4 credits is not enough to get in that big of a server.
When anybody tempo levies with like 70 cards in their deck, it is the funniest thing. I know we saw this as soon as like week 1 with the coalescences and the Cabineza decks, but sometimes the best thing you can do is just get all the coalescences back in your list. So you'll pay 5 credits to draw a new hand and just reset everything. It's so silly and it's so good.
And the deck deer helps a lot here. You'll see OF 1515 installing all the coalescences on that deck deer and getting the full 4 credit value into trashing it with World Tree over and over and over. So there's a really good setup here.
Augie is in a rough position now. There's only so many boat counters. We only have 1 breaker so far. The next will come, but off 15 on a low 2 credits here. Looks like we're going to push 2 cards on the remote server. We know one of them could be the Mark Yale. But here, Augustus definitely wants to be on game point and then threaten out Clot. Now, Clot might be a hard thing to threaten, right? Like we saw Cyberdeck's Fire Suites, of course we have. But also, like, how do you get a simul chip here? You have to find a hardware, and then you still have to trade it on the turn, which means if you made a successful run, your trade is done for the turn. World Tree is only the first run.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in. We see 1515 generating more and more value with the Coalescence, probably looking to run 1 remote or a central rider here to use the world trees, setting up probably all the rest of the breakers he needs to get in our server, and ideally challenging the server for seeing what Augustus is hiding in that server.
So we're going to grab our breakers. Yogg is not Buzzsaw in some ways. It's much better. You cannot boost its strength, but it does break every code gate underneath 5 strength until the second turbine, I imagine, comes out for 0 credits. So that's going to hit the table. Second off, we're going to look from our deck. We can get a compilation. We can technically see every card in HQ if we really want to, but with a remote server here, Augustus might not be holding the agendas. It's just going to be the Echelon. So our breaker suite has been assembled. Finding Rashida can definitely trash that for 1 if you want to make HQ a bit softer here. The question is, with 9 credits, do you challenge remote server? Augie only has 8 to res border controls and whatever else, and you still have 6 power counters on the endurance.
Yeah. Very importantly, the Archer is a tough break point for Echelon right now.
Yeah. You want another breaker or another turbine.
Yeah, with enough cards in hand, the IQ is definitely above the Yogg limit. Currently not threatening, but if Augustus finds a way to have 6 or more cards in hand in any way, that's the server that OF 1515 cannot get in with his current setup.
Yeah, I wonder if you can just like run R&D here. Again, you're breaking already for 0. And if Augustus reses on R&D, the remote server might be an issue. Boarding control on the outermost, we're breaking that for 1. So we're going to have to run back. I imagine we're just going to use our endurance here, to deal with the 6 strength. Otherwise, we do have to boost for at least break for 6 credits. So the endurance is going to pay for itself.
You can see OF looking at how much does it cost with Echelon, then deciding to use the console.
That is also res for 3 credits, but it's only broken for 1. But now with the boarding control, off 1515 can't easily run back. In theory, you'd have to break at least probably one of the subroutines with the turbine, with the Echelon. But now Augustus can go grab with Op here. On 1 credit, I don't know if you're worried about the remote server. I think we've seen 2 Rashida so far, but if it's just a Sandstone here, those are always broken for 1 credit with this breaker suite.
Yeah, this doesn't look like a great position to be in. The turbine rig is definitely breaking most of these eyes for very cheap.
Question is, do you just grab a breaker from your deck to save the credits on the Echelon? Do you run it back or do you not have to? Here you can run a R&D, you can run HQ. There's a chance that we want to keep the last 4 credits on the Temujin just to get fodder, but it looks like Mayfly's coming down. We're running this remote server. Again, this looks like it's only going to cost us 6 credits, which is still a fair bit of money considering we only have 10.
Interesting
runner
decision
side.
from the runner to find the Mayfly from the stack rather than using the one they have in hand.
Yeah. Well, it's free, right? I guess the deck deer
It
doesn't
is
matter.
free, yeah.
Yeah.
But it goes away at the end of the turn. You have to remove the Mayfly, so that's something that's not coming back in any situation.
There's the Atlas. That's game. It's in the remote server. Saying if Augustus is going to go down to that few credits on the remote server, there must be something valuable in there. And on 1 credit, I don't know if that's moving next turn, but off 15/15 saying is I can go down to 4 credits. I have the whole rig set up. Wow, I think that's the strongest World Tree we've seen so far in that matchup. And unfortunately, that matchup was just about how quickly can you break ice, and you can break ice relatively quickly. Oh no, we're going to infinite loop.
Oh no. But yeah, definitely setting up quite quickly. And we have the standings here. We see OF 15/15 at 18 points with an amazing tiebreaker score. And Ysengrin on the chase on 15 with a slightly worse tiebreaker score. And then a big pack of 12 points runners, some of which are on 3 games played, some others are on 4. So we see Jai and Silent Tiebreaker kind of slightly ahead, I want to say, given that they have less games played. So more points to possibly score in the later rounds.
Yeah, just to clarify, because there are 9 players and every week there's only 8 games, 1 player sits out every week. So that hasn't been even half of them just yet. So some players have played more games than others. Some have played fewer. So the scores, again, by the end of 9 weeks, everyone will have played the same amount of games. All 15/15 notably has played like the fewest games. I do believe had the bye on like round 2 or round 1. So that's a very strong score. Yeah.
Yeah. You're currently 6-0, I think. The win tie losses on the right hand side of the graph tells us that he has not dropped a single game thus far.
Yeah, wild. And is changing decks, mind you. 15 was playing Liza before and now on something fresh and new here. So the players, again, this is phase 2, are locked into these decks for the next 2 weeks after this. And then at the beginning of week 7, I believe, there's another phase 3.
That's correct.
Okay, from 7 to 9.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Wow, what a Sunday. We've seen some wild games. Again, a huge meta shift that players are going to have to, deal with over the next couple weeks before they can change their decks again. We've seen a fair bit of Cabinet SOU. Some of that's World Tree, some of that's not World Tree, which is pretty exciting. And then on the Corp side, whether we get to see some more fun Métis, I do believe one of the Métis players, Have Her Fun, was sitting out this week, if I'm not mistaken. I do always want to see more Métis. And we saw Jumon Métis, double Jumon, which was just absurd and very, very quick.
We saw 2 Jumon scored. We saw 7 points in a single payability window coming from MBN, which is probably the least represented faction in the format. So definitely some fun, wild stuff, and we'll see more of it next week and the week after.
Awesome. And so if you've been watching this, whether you're live or whether you're watching recorded, thanks so much for tuning into the Eternal Super League. If you want to take a second to leave a like on the video, that does help a heck of a lot. If you want to subscribe, mind you, that also does help. Apparently we can't add timestamps until there's 1,000 subscribers on this channel. So if you're looking for the timestamps, they will be in the description. But at this point, if you're listening to this part, you probably watched everything. So thanks so much for hanging out, Warlock. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for handling the stream.
Of course, there's a bunch of people working behind the scenes, mind you, like Warlock and the whole Eternal team. Of course, all the players who are playing week by week by week, recording their games, submitting it. A lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes. So if you're appreciating this, just to let you know, there's a lot of folks who are happy that you're enjoying this as much as you all are. And with that, we'll be back next Sunday at, I believe it's 7 UTC, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's my time zone, with some more Eternal Super League. We're just going to be halfway through. That'll be week 5 of 9 in 1 week. Thanks so much.